Let's be real, this is actually what my packing is like. My point is this, going to Disneyland should be easy. It used to be much easier, yet if you've heard anything about planning a California Disneyland trip over the past few years, you might be overwhelmed thinking about it all. Reservations, lightning lane, the rising cost of tickets, not to mention the standard things like booking flights and hotels. There's a lot more planning involved than there used to be, but fear not. Planning is my middle name, and in these next few videos, I'm going to break it all down for you. So take a deep breath, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and let's do this together. Prior to 2017, I hadn't been to Disneyland since I was about 3 years old. I really didn't know anything about the parks. When my father-in-law booked a trip for the entire family to go, I didn't know what to expect. Our son was 2 at the time, and I went into the trip mostly blind. There is something to be said for experiencing the park for the first time, or first time as an adult, without any preconceived notions or expectations, and it was definitely fun to experience all of that with our little one. However, that first trip ignited a passion in me, and I wanted to learn everything I could before our next trip. I feel like our next trip, I got so much more out of it, because I had learned a lot more about the parks, the history, the property as a whole, the way things work, and of course, lots of hacks and tips. So, in case you're completely new to Disneyland and what the resort has to offer, and yes, technically the entire property is called the Disneyland Resort, the property consists of 2 theme parks, 3 hotels, a shopping district, and parking areas. I don't think there's a partridge in a pear tree, but you never know. To go to the shopping district or explore the hotels doesn't require a theme park ticket. You can do those things on your arrival day or on an off day if you want. If you want to go to the 2 theme parks, Disneyland or Disney California Adventure, you will need a theme park ticket and a reservation. If you buy your tickets directly from Disney, you will be able to book a reservation as part of the ticket buying process. If you buy a ticket from a third party, you'll have to book your reservation separately after you receive your tickets. More on that later. Unless you have a park hopper ticket, you'll only be able to go to 1 park per day. However, unlike Walt Disney World, the parks are very close together. They're only about 279 feet apart. That is less than 300 feet. So park hopping is definitely more worthwhile, as you don't have to deal with any sort of transportation and additional time when transferring between parks. The hotels on property are open to the public, and you can explore their dining options, shopping, spa, and lobbies. You can't use their pools, however. Disneyland Theme Park is Walt Disney's original Magic Kingdom. This park has been around since July 17, 1955, and it only took 1 year to build. Disneyland is packed full of nostalgia and history, and there's a charm and intimacy here that you won't find at any other Disney theme park. There are 9 lands in this park, and yes, I'm counting Main Street as a land, and you're going to want to give yourself at least 2 days to spend here. If you have any Star Wars fans in your group, this is going to be a highlight, as there's an entire land dedicated to Star Wars. Of course, there are also all the princesses, classic Disney characters, and other sorts of adventures in this park as well. Little kids will love Fantasyland and Toontown. Thrill seekers will love Space Mountain, the Matterhorn, Big Thunder Mountain, Indiana Jones Adventure, and Tiana's Bayou Adventure when it opens later this year. Rise of the Resistance is fun for everyone, even non-Star Wars fans. Magic Happens is the current main parade here, and it's full of excitement and energy. Fun to watch for an afternoon break. They also have a seasonal parade during Christmas time. The fireworks shows vary by season, but they're always special to see at least once. Fantasmic has been a highlight for many families for years, and it's a favorite every night. Check the calendar for your trip days to make sure that you're aware of the schedule so that you avoid disappointment if something isn't scheduled during your visit. The park closes at midnight during peak times of the year and 10 p.m. when it isn't peak season. There are also early park closures on special event nights. Disney California Adventure, also known as DCA, was built in 2001 in the parking lot area of the original Disneyland park. It went through an extensive refurbishment / retheming in 2012, and part of Paradise Pier was reimagined in 2018 to become Pixar Pier. It consists of 8 lands, again counting Buena Vista Street, equal to Main Street at Disneyland, as a land. There's something for everyone here, especially for the Marvel fan and Pixar fan. There are many rides and characters to meet here based on Pixar films, and there's an entire land dedicated to the Avengers, with plenty of Avengers to meet who might even try to recruit you. Cars Land is a can't-miss experience. Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, Grizzly River Run, Goofy Sky School, and the Incredicoaster are good for some thrills. Mater's Junkyard Jamboree is maybe the most fun, can't help but laugh ride, and the rides around Pixar Pier and Paradise Gardens, like Toy Story Midway Mania, Emotional Whirlwind, and The Little Mermaid, are fun for all ages. World of Color is a nightly show and it's worth seeing at least once. They have different versions at different times of the year or events, so it isn't always the same, but it is for long periods of time. They have a parade running now for Pixar Fest, but it isn't permanent as the festival ends in August. They also have a Halloween parade during the Halloween season. There are lots of entertainment options in the various lands as well. For example, Phil Her Magic, Turtle Talk with Crush, and the Disney Junior Dance Party for little kids are in Hollywoodland. Avengers Campus has a Spider-Man show, Avengers Assemble show, and the Dora Milaje. You can also catch a Guardians of the Galaxy awesome dance-off here. DCA is at least a one-day park, but if you want to see all the shows, ride your favorite rides more than once, and experience some of the extras, you'll want 2 days. They close at 10 p.m. most nights. If you have a park hopper, you can go to Disneyland if it's still open for the last 2 hours of the night. So that's just a general overview of the parks, and hopefully it will lay out a foundation for you as we get into our next video, which will help you decide when you should go. I hate the heat. That's probably why I haven't been to Walt Disney World since I was 4, although I do still want to go eventually. I get so much anxiety every time summer comes around, although by the end I'm usually used to it. My husband loves the heat and I get so mad at him for it, like he's the reason why it's so hot. So if you're like me, weather might be a factor when you decide to plan your Disneyland trip. There can be a lot of factors to consider when deciding when you want to visit the Disneyland Resort. Aside from weather, there are things like crowds, holiday seasons, special ticketed events, grad nights, ride closures, and more. Now I get to play the weather girl. The weather from November to March is the coolest, ranging from the high 60s to the mid 70s. December to April are also the rainiest months, although it's not typical to get rain for days on end. So even if you have a rainy day forecasted during your trip, it's not likely to be rainy for your entire trip. Spring warms up to the mid 70s, reaching to the high 70s in June. The summer and early fall is the hottest and driest season, with temperatures in the high 80s and low 90s. By the time October comes around, it might drop down to the low 80s, but it's still pretty dry and warm. As far as crowds, there is no such thing as a dead or not busy Disneyland. It doesn't exist. There's standard busy and crazy busy, but that's about it. Typically, January and February have been lower crowd months. However, this past year, Disneyland came out with an amazing ticket offer for kids in February, and crowd levels were pretty high. Spring break is definitely one of the peak seasons. This can include much of March and at least half of April. The end of April and May are usually not as busy. Late spring and early summer have actually been a bit slower for the last few years. This is in part due to the fact that 2 of the tiers for annual passes are blocked out for June and July. The Halloween season typically runs all of September and October, although it is starting a week early in 2024, and the crowds usually pick up then. November slows down slightly before picking up again in December for the Christmas season, although if you want to enjoy the Christmas vibes, the decorations are up within the first couple of weeks of November without the higher crowds that show up around Thanksgiving and early December and for the rest of the year. At the end of the school year, there are grad nights, which are evenings that graduates come to DCA for a special after-hours event for select days in May and June. There were 15 of them in 2024. You can find those dates on the Disneyland website when they're posted. They close DCA early on those days, at 9 p.m. instead of 10. Of course, anyone with a park hopper would head over to Disneyland at that point, or just book Disneyland only for a single-day park ticket. So you might have lower crowds at DCA that day, but you will probably notice bigger crowds at Disneyland. So you could try to gamble and work around that, and maybe catch a partial bargain at DCA earlier in the day, or just avoid grad nights altogether. In the early part of the year, Disneyland hosts a number of after-dark, separate ticketed events, such as Star Wars Night or Sweethearts Night. These usually run on select evenings during winter and spring. If you want to attend, you need to purchase a ticket separate from your park ticket. These tickets are highly coveted and can sell out quickly. You usually have to be ready to buy them as soon as they're available, first thing in the morning. Disney announces details ahead of time if you're interested. After those events, they don't have any other After Dark events until the Oogie Boogie Bash in September and October, which is also very popular. They did have a Christmas season event one year, but they haven't done it since that one year. Just be mindful of these special event nights, what days they're running, and what parks they're running in, as the park that the event is in will close early on event nights. If you don't have an event ticket, you will have to leave. Other factors to consider are seasonal events. This year they ran Pixar Fest from the end of April till August 4th. They had Season of the Force for most of April, May, and into early June. They have the Halloween season from the second half of August until Halloween. Back to my heat hate. I had been during the Halloween season, and while it had its hot days, we were there in mid-September, I survived and it wasn't that bad. Christmas is from early November until early January. Lunar New Year runs at DCA from early January into February. Food and Wine Festival runs at DCA from early March until the end of April. There are also other events scattered through the year for a few days here and there, so check the calendar if you don't want to miss those or if you want to avoid them because of increased crowds. And amidst all of that are ride closures and large construction projects. Splash Mountain has been closed since spring 2023 to retheme it into Tiana's Bayou Adventure. It's expected to remain closed until sometime in the fall of 2024 when the work is completed. Critter Country was closed on May 1st, 2024 and is expected to remain closed for the duration of the work on Tiana's Bayou Adventure. This includes Winnie the Pooh. The Haunted Mansion is also having extensive work being done on the exterior queue in 2024. The ride was closed but has since been opened with the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay. There is still construction work being done outside, so the ride is on the virtual queue system until the work is completed. And then they have little refurbishments throughout the year. They try to plan more of those for before spring break, but this year is an exceptional one. Disney posts these closures on their calendar, but they're only posted typically about 6 weeks before. So if your trip is booked earlier than that, which it likely will be, keep an eye on the schedule so that you can at least prepare for disappointments. It does seem like they've got some bigger closures this year at peak times, like a Space Mountain closure in early August 2024 for about a month or so. The train and monorail are also closing for longer periods of time in the summer of 2024. I think this all might be to make sure that the park is in tip-top shape for its 70th anniversary in 2025, as well as, of course, the opening of Tiana's Bayou Adventure this year. You can also anticipate standard closures for the Haunted Mansion and It's a Small World for seasonal overlays, or Grizzly River Run in the colder months for standard maintenance. So with all of those factors, I personally like early May the best for my trips. I also like to go early to mid-November to catch the early part of the Christmas season, but avoid the Thanksgiving busy period leading into December. And, contrary to what some people think, holidays are usually busier at Disneyland, not slow. For example, some of the busiest days can be Easter, Thanksgiving Day, New Year's Day, and Christmas Day. As for which are the least busy days of the week, the reservation system combined with the Magic Key schedule has forced the days to become a little bit more even. I'd say right now, unless it's a holiday or special event, Fridays and Sundays are some of the least busy days now, and Monday and Tuesday are typically the busiest days. Okay, so once you've decided on when you want to go, it's time to figure out where you should stay. Going to Disneyland is fun!
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
If you're traveling with babies or young children, the hotel part can be stressful though. At least hotels have been stressful for me when traveling with babies. Maybe I'm alone, but I doubt it. Story time! When our son was 8 or 9 months old, my in-laws were so kind and offered to pay for us to drive down to a city about 3 hours away where we'd spend the night in a hotel and explore and have a lovely time together with my in-laws as a family. So generous of them. Our son wasn't quite sleeping through the night, and at home, I'd usually nurse him once during the night and put him back to bed, and he'd fall asleep and it would be fine. In the hotel, he woke up, I nursed him, and I could not get him to go back to sleep. Keep in mind, we're sharing a room with my in-laws. Baby starts to cry. Nothing I was doing was getting him quiet. I start panicking and worrying about everyone having a bad sleep and being grouchy and mad at me for some reason the next day. So I took his carrier out to the parking lot at 3 a.m. and rocked him to sleep in our van. I somehow managed to transfer him back into his playpen in the hotel, but that experience traumatized me into never wanting to share a hotel with others and a baby again. I'm sure no other parents out there can relate. So yeah, picking how you're going to rest and recover when you're not at the theme parks or whatever else you're doing is a big decision with lots of factors. Most people think of hotels right away, and obviously this is what most people are used to and are comfortable with. I personally usually book vacation rental properties through websites like Vrbo or Airbnb because of the type of traveling that I do, but more on that later. So some things to consider are your party size, if you'll have a vehicle, either renting or driving your own, the distance from the parks that you're comfortable with, how long of a trip you'll have, price, amenities like free breakfasts or parking, pools, and how much time you'll spend at the hotel. Will you just be crashing there at night, or will you be taking rest days or afternoon naps there? Here's a question related to accommodation. Is renting a vehicle necessary? Well, only you can answer that. There are many transportation options around the Disneyland Resort. ART, which stands for Anaheim Regional Transportation, is a bus system, and it's quite good. Uber and Lyft are very popular options as well. Some hotels have complimentary shuttles. If you're in a hotel close to the Toy Story parking lot, which is a Disneyland parking lot about 3/4 of a mile south of Disneyland on South Harbor Boulevard, you could walk over to the parking lot and take the bus for free. If you have little kids and you're using Uber or Lyft, do you have car seats or boosters for them? You can't really use your own unless you have a small booster or an inflatable one that you can stash in a locker during your visit to the park. If you take a bus or a shuttle, you don't really need to worry about that. If you rent a car, you'll have to factor in parking at your hotel, and if you drive it to Disneyland, parking at the parking lot there as well. As of this recording, parking is $35 for a standard size vehicle per day. And of course, walking is always an option too, but 20 to 30,000 steps a day and then a long walk to the hotel at the end of the day isn't exactly fun, especially with little kids, or if you want to take a rest in the afternoon and go to your hotel and then head back to Disneyland in the evening. So this is where hotel proximity becomes a factor. I have a friend who had a vehicle and the dad dropped them off and picked them up, and he walked back and forth to the hotel. It was about a 10 to 15 minute walk each way depending on traffic lights, and that worked for them, but it might not work for everyone. I'm not trying to overcomplicate things. Basically, I'm just trying to get you to think about how you will get to the theme park with the accommodation you've chosen. If you have smaller kids, I'd recommend being in walking distance so that you can push a stroller, or rent a car, or find a hotel with a shuttle. With older kids, walking is a bit easier, or you have the option of taking Uber and Lyft easier without having to worry about car seats and booster seats. If you do rent a car and choose to drive and park at the Toy Story parking lot. It's less busy in the morning. They do bag check there. If you're trying to rope drop, you can definitely get in the park earlier when you park at the Toy Story parking lot and take the free bus versus a Mickey and Friends parking structure. So, back to hotels. South Harbor Boulevard is the main street east of the Disneyland Resort, and that is one of the most popular places to stay. Of course, the closer you are to the resort, generally speaking, the more expensive the hotels will be. As mentioned before though, if you're further away and need to rent a car or use Uber or Lyft, or take a bus, you'll need to factor that into your costs as well. If you save $50 a night on a hotel that's 3 kilometers away, but you have little kids in car seats and you need to rent a car, then you'll probably spend more than $50 a day on the rental car, plus parking at the resort and your hotel. So these are all things to consider. You can find hotel ratings and reviews on websites like Travelocity, Expedia, or Booking.com. Many of the popular hotels in the area are the Howard Johnson by Wyndham, Anaheim, or Hojo as it's affectionately called. They have a fun water playground. Courtyard by Marriott, Anaheim, which has a bigger water park. The Candy Cane Inn. Homewood Suites by Hilton, the Best Western Plus, Park Place Inn, Castle Inn and Suites, the Tropicana, Anaheim Camelot Inn and Suites, Anaheim Majestic Garden, and the Grand Legacy at the park. That is by no means an extensive list, but these are just some of the most popular options. Of course, there are always the on-property hotels. the Disneyland Hotel, the Pixar Place Hotel, and the Grand Californian Hotel. The main benefit is that you get early entry to one of the parks. It alternates which one on which day, a half an hour early. They are not necessarily the closest hotels to the theme park entrance, however. The Best Western Plus, Park Place Inn, is literally right across the street, for example, and it's about 400 meters from that hotel to the Disneyland front gates, versus over 700 meters from the Disneyland Hotel to the front gates. The other two on-property hotels, Pixar Place and the Grand Californian, have dedicated entrances right into DCA, so that is a bit of a perk, but on Disneyland early entry days, you'd still have to walk to the Disneyland front gates, so it might not be the time and distance savings every day that you were hoping for. If you want to stay in the Disney bubble with exceptional theming, dining, and customer service, and you can afford the budget increase, then a Disneyland Resort Hotel might be for you. You can also find package deals on the Disneyland website for hotels and tickets. There are also Good Neighbor Hotels. A Disneyland Good Neighbor Hotel is a hotel located near the Disneyland Resort that meets specific criteria set by Disney for quality, service, and convenience. While these hotels are not owned or operated by Disney, they are endorsed by Disney as preferred accommodations for visitors to go to the Disneyland Resort. Disney partners with them to offer special hotel and ticket packages as well. Go to the Disneyland website for more information. You can also contact travel agents like Getaway Today or Undercover Tourist, as they can often get you deals on ticket and room packages or free nights. For example, stay 3 nights and get the 4th night free. These agents are free to use as they are paid by Disney or the hotels for their services. Also, keep in mind that you'll probably be booking your hotel earlier than your flights, so you'll want to protect yourself in case of a significant difference in flight pricing by booking a hotel that has free cancellations or pay extra for the option to cancel so that you can snag that better flight deal and then rebook your hotel for those dates. Now, for a different perspective, I've gone on multiple trips where I've stayed at Airbnbs or Vrbos. We usually travel with our kids, and we also like staying anywhere between 1 and 2 weeks, which I realize is longer than the average Disneyland trip. When we have those longer trips, it's nice to be able to have a full kitchen to cook in and save money for meals. It's also so great to have laundry, as anyone with kids knows. We have always chosen places with pools, and they're within walking distance of Disneyland, usually 20 minutes or less. One of them was very close to the Toy Story parking lot, so we walked to that and then took the free bus to Disneyland. They're also great for keeping costs down for bigger groups. Maybe 2 families are going together, or you're traveling with multi-generations. We went with my husband's family, and there were 6 adults and a 2-year-old. It's nice when everyone can have their own spaces to relax in, or to put a baby to sleep in, but some common areas like the kitchen, pool, or living room to gather in. There was parking as well, so we could rent a car or bring our own vehicle, and we were able to use it to do some exploring around the area on our rest days. We've found them to be comparable in price to the hotels for the most part. There are some great themed houses as well that are so much fun, so this could be an option for you as well. It just depends on your comfort level. Whatever you do, make sure you go through a reputable website like Vrbo or Airbnb for your protection. Find an experienced host with lots of positive reviews so that you can make the best choice for your family. Phew, now that major hurdle is out of the way, how are you going to get there? Let's talk about that in our next video. All this talk about hotels is making me need a nap. When my son was 2, we drove 21 hours to Disneyland in 3 days of driving. It wasn't as bad as you'd think as far as his behavior was concerned. He occupied himself with this magnetic drawing pad most of the time. It also, quote-unquote, helped that my husband broke his foot right before the trip and had to sit in the back seat of the van with his legs stretched out because of his immobilizing boot thingy. So they were sitting next to each other the whole drive there and back. We also listened to a Walt Disney World CD on repeat the whole drive. Yeah, that was an interesting trip. Fun. But it had its actually fun, broken wheelchair, broken foot, spending 6 days in a car driving together, not having Disney tickets before we actually got there, bad haircut the night before the trip moments. Anyway, with all that being said, would I drive down again? Probably not. We spent 6 days in a car that would have been more fun, not in a car. But it was cheaper than flights for so many people, although there was 2 hotel rooms for 2 nights on the way there, and 2 hotel rooms for 2 nights on the way back. So just consider all of that before you decide how to get there. Lots of people drive and make it a fun road trip. If that's you, yay! pack lots of snacks, and maybe more than one music soundtrack option. If you want to fly, these tips could help. You first want to decide what airport you want to fly into. The main two options are LAX in Los Angeles or John Wayne Airport in Anaheim. There is a third option in Long Beach. You could check that for pricing, but it's not as popular to use as the other two airports. LAX is often the cheapest, depending on where you're flying in from. It's a very large airport and it can take anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours to get to the Disneyland area, depending on the time of day, traffic, etc. If you're not renting a car, you will have to consider how you're going to get to your accommodations. You can book shuttle services through companies like Carmel Shuttle, Super Shuttle, or Diamond Driver Guy. You can take a taxi or you can take an Uber or Lyft. John Wayne Airport is much closer, and the drive can take anywhere between 15 and 45 minutes, depending on traffic. The flights can be more expensive, but the difference in cost might be worth it once you factor in your transportation costs to the airport. The transportation options are the same as with LAX. You can also look into bus options between John Wayne and the Disneyland area as well. The optimal time to book flights depends on several factors, including your destination, travel dates, and whether you're booking domestic or international flights. You can also set price alerts on some websites to let you know if the price drops on a flight you're interested in. Let's break it down. Alright, so I have a handy dandy chart here for domestic flights and for international flights. So for domestic flights, just keep in mind you want to start monitoring prices about 3 to 4 months in advance of your trip and aim to book about 1 to 2 months before your departure date. Also consider flying during the middle of the week, as often flights are cheaper on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And try to avoid last minute booking because you're going to have a lot higher prices if you do that. For international flights, you're going to want to try to plan a bit earlier, start monitoring prices about 6 to 7 months before your trip, and try to book 3 to 5 months in advance. Again, try to be flexible with your booking days, as weekdays are often cheaper than weekends. And definitely just plan ahead. You don't want to do anything last minute, otherwise you're going to be paying more for your flights. A lot of times, booking directly through an airline's website is cheaper, and it's easier to resolve problems, change reservations, etc. if you're dealing directly with an airline versus a third party. Consider paying a bit more for the option to change your flight if necessary. That being said, there are sometimes good package deals for flights and hotels through websites like Expedia, Orbitz, Priceline, Travelocity, Kayak, Cheap Tickets, or even Costco Travel if you're a member. You can also ask a trusted travel agent if you're used to using them. They might have some suggestions as well. Also, consider getting travel insurance to protect you from unexpected surprises that might pop up. And keep in mind reward points, either booking with reward points or using payment methods that get you a lot of points to use in the future. Also, some credit cards have good travel protection as well, so look into the benefits that your card might have to offer. So yeah, flying, it's a great option. It's also hard with young kids if you have them, so good luck either way. Learn about getting your theme park tickets in the next video. Stay tuned. I have lots of fun family stories about Disney trips before I knew how to plan them. This one is from 2017 again. It was a simpler age. Park reservations weren't a thing. You could walk up to the park and buy tickets for that day, except for maybe on New Year's Eve, and then just walk right into the park. Crazy concept, right? So my family wanted to get some discounted tickets. Fair enough. The internet wasn't really a thing back then, so we had to drive around to find the best deals. Okay, obviously it was, and I'm joking. I'm sure there was a legitimate reason, like there actually was a place that you could go to in person to get cheaper tickets. But anyway, I was just along for the ride. On the morning of our first theme park day, we drove around Anaheim for a bit, not hours, just a few places, to try to get some discounted tickets. I'm pretty sure we even ended up at a massage parlor for some reason. I don't know. I was in the backseat of a minivan, crammed with people just along for the ride, enjoying the scenery. Eventually we gave up our hunt, and we just bought the tickets at the front of the park and we just walked in. These were also paper tickets. Now they're all digital. Ah, those were the days. So nowadays, especially since the internet has taken off and become a thing, you have several options for how to get your tickets, which are digital only. You can get them direct from Disney on their website or their app, or you can use another trusted website like Getaway Today or Undercover Tourist. You should also make sure to mention if you qualify for discounts like active or retired U.S. military, Disney Visa card members, or California resident tickets. They used to occasionally have discounted Canadian resident tickets, but I don't think they have for Disneyland since the park reopened in 2021 after the shutdown. Before you buy your tickets, you need to decide if you will want to get single park per day tickets or park hopper tickets. If you've been to Walt Disney World but not Disneyland, maybe you're used to only getting single park per day tickets because it takes a long time to park hop. For Disneyland, however, you might want to consider park hoppers. Disneyland is 85 meters from DCA. Park hopping is quite easy, and anytime I've gotten park hoppers, I've found myself going back and forth between the two parks multiple times per day. You must pick a starting park and then you can hop to the other park at 11 a.m. Another thing to consider is, will you be using Lightning Lane MultiPass, which is formerly called Genie Plus, or even back further in the day, Max Pass? What is Lightning Lane MultiPass? It's an additional product that you can add to your ticket that will allow you to bypass most of the line for the most popular rides. You can only use it once per ride per day, and it isn't for every single ride, just the most popular ones. It's based on on-demand pricing if you buy it at the park for the day, and it ranges from $25 to $35 per person per day. You can play it by ear and determine if you need it when you're in the parks, or if you just want it for part of your trip or for all of your trip. Or you can buy it with your tickets and lock in whatever pricing is available at that time, and you won't have to pay more on the day of your visit should the prices go up. I'll explain Lightning Lane MultiPass a bit more in a future video, but that's the basics for the purpose of ticket purchasing. It also doesn't work for Rise of the Resistance and Radiator Springs racers. They require a Lightning Lane single pass purchase. These are priced separately and can also vary based on the attraction and day. Or you can wait in the regular standby lineup for free. You may think that the cheapest tickets are always going to be from Disney directly, but that isn't always true. I got my most recent tickets from Getaway Today last year on a Black Friday deal, and I got an extra park day for free, so be sure you research your options. Disney also runs promotions occasionally for ticket deals that you can get through them or third parties, so be sure to ask what current promotions are being offered. You can also sign up for email lists from Disney or third-party sellers to stay on top of sales and discounts. Also, keep in mind, if you only buy a ticket for one day, tiered pricing is in effect, which means some days cost more than others. You don't need to purchase tickets for children under the age of 3. You might be asked for verification of their age, however, at the gate, so have that handy. Okay, so you have your tickets. Now you just head to Disneyland and skip right into the parks, right? No. Now there is the extra annoying, magical step of booking reservations. If you get your tickets from someone other than Disney, you have to book your reservations after you receive your voucher number, which can take a couple of days. You can just go on the Disneyland website, go to My Disneyland, tickets and reservation details, and then make or modify park reservations. If you buy your ticket from Disney directly, you can make reservations right away as part of the ticket buying process. So how do you choose what days to make your reservations for? Here's what to consider. Guests staying on property at the Disneyland Hotel, the Grand Californian, or the Pixar Place Hotel can take advantage of 30-minute early entry to a designated theme park each day. Disneyland opens some attractions early for Disney Hotel guests on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. These rides are Alice in Wonderland, Astro Orbiter, Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, the Disneyland Monorail, Dumbo the Flying Elephant, King Arthur Carousel, Mad Tea Party, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Peter Pan's Flight, Pinocchio's Daring Journey, Snow White's Enchanted Wish, Space Mountain, and Star Tours. Disney California Adventure opens early on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for Disney Hotel guests. For DCA, early entry rides are Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, The Incredicoaster, The Little Mermaid, Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, Monsters Inc., Soarin' Around the World, and Web Slingers. This means that by the time the park opens for guests who aren't staying on property, there can already be some lines. They're not super long, but they can take away the major advantage you would have by being there for rope drop. Of course, if you're staying on property, take advantage of early entry and book your park days for the park that opens early. If you have early entry and you want to do a big ride like Radiator Springs Racers, for example, your advantage would be that you could be at the front of the line when it does open, if you're in the area waiting for them to open the ride. Sometimes it doesn't open for 8 a.m., so listen to what the cast members in the area are saying. Same for Rise of the Resistance. So what does this mean for you if you're staying off property? My advice is, if you're staying off property, to book your park, or starting park if you have a park hopper ticket, for the opposite days of early entry, and rope drop to take advantage of the fact that you're first in the park. Keep in mind that not every ride is open for rope drop. Listen to the cast members to see what they have to say. You also might want to consider if you want to have some rest days on your trip, or if there's anything else you want to see in the surrounding areas. I'll make a separate video for options for that. So yeah, take advantage of the internet. Get your tickets before you go to avoid disappointment because you didn't book a reservation, and go make a fun Disney calendar itinerary for your trip after you made your reservations, because it's really happening and you get to enjoy the anticipation of the trip. Yay! Or maybe it's only me that makes fun calendar itineraries. But anyway, please don't stop watching my video series, because next we're going to talk about the fun and exciting topic of how to get around Anaheim while you're down there. So stay tuned. I live 1,276 miles from Disneyland. Boo, that is too far away. I've been to Disneyland multiple times with different transportation choices. I've driven down there, flown and rented a car, as well as flown and just used Uber, Lyft, and shuttles while I've been down there. I've also said, enough of this, how can I move to Anaheim so that transportation isn't even an issue? While this is the most attractive option, it's also the most expensive. So yeah, you gotta figure out what works best for you. In all seriousness, there are pros and cons to each option. If you drive, you'll have a vehicle while you're in Anaheim, but you'll need to consider the driving expense, including gas, maintenance on your vehicle, and wear and tear. Will you need to stay at a hotel one or multiple nights on the way there and back? Is that time better spent at the parks? I think that the answer to that is always yes, but you do you. Does your hotel or accommodations have free parking? Do you want to drive to Disneyland each day, or are you going to be close enough to walk? Have you factored parking at Disneyland in your expenses? As of this video, daily parking rates at the Disney parking lots are $35 per regular size car or motorcycle per day. If you fly to Anaheim and decide to rent a vehicle, obviously your main expense is the vehicle rental. But you'll also need to consider parking at your hotel or wherever you're staying, and parking at the parks if you drive there. I've covered this next part in my accommodations video, which you should see a link to at the top right of your screen, if YouTube works properly. Basically, if you don't have your own vehicle or a rental, there are many transportation options around the Disneyland Resort. ART, or Anaheim Regional Transportation, is a bus system, and it's quite good. Uber and Lyft are very popular options as well. Some hotels have complimentary shuttles. If you're in a hotel close to the Toy Story parking lot, which is a Disneyland parking lot about 3/4 of a mile south of Disneyland on South Harbor Boulevard, you could walk over to the parking lot and take their bus for free. If you have little kids and you're using Uber or Lyft, do you have car seats or boosters for them? If you take a bus or a shuttle, you don't need to worry about that. You can't really use your own unless you have a small booster or inflatable one that you can stash in a locker during your visit to the park. And of course, walking is always an option, but 20,000 to 30,000 steps a day and then a long walk to the hotel at the end of the day isn't exactly fun, especially with little kids, or if you want to take a rest in the afternoon and go to your hotel and then go back to the parks. So this is where hotel proximity becomes a factor. You could also just rent a car for part of your trip. Say you want to go to the beach or something out of town, although you need to factor drop-off and pickup times in your days. I'm not trying to overcomplicate things. Basically, I'm just trying to get you to think about how you will get around during your trip, and also consider how you'll get to and from the airport, either LAX or John Wayne. See my video on booking a flight for more on that. Anyway, that part was boring, not near as exciting as choosing a hotel or picking what days you'll be at the park. Let's get on to some more fun stuff, like actually being in Disneyland. I remember in 2017 when I first went to Disneyland as an adult and I discovered the magical Fast Pass. You could skip most of the line for a ride for free? What an amazing thing! I honestly couldn't believe it. And while it was great, I was excited in 2019 when we were able to add Max Pass to our tickets. Paying for the digital version of Fast Passes was worth it to me. I was already doing 30,000 steps or more per day. I did not need to add to that to go get paper fast passes from the opposite end of the park to use later in the day. Although I will admit those actual fast pass papers were neat souvenirs. And now we have Lightning Lane Multipass, and there are no more free fast passes, and the magic is gone and Disney is ruined forever. At least that's how some people think of it. And I get it. It sucks to have to pay for something that used to be free. However, I will put it out there that Disneyland Lightning Lane is a great value compared to parks like Knott's Berry Farm and Universal Studios, as theirs start at $75 and $100 respectively. Lightning Lane Multipass, formerly Genie Plus or Max Pass prior to the park closure in 2020, is a service that you can purchase to enhance your Disneyland trip. You have to buy it for each person per day for whatever days you want it, or you can include it with your ticket purchase for the entire trip. Just to clarify, if only some of your party wants it, that's fine. You don't need it for your entire group, just the people who want to skip the lines on the attractions included. The price starts at $30 per person per day. It allows you to skip much of the line for the most popular attractions in the park. You do not need to purchase it for kids under 3 if they are joining the rest of your party who has Lightning Lane Multipass. Once you have it booked, you can book another one in 2 hours or once you've scanned in for the ride that you've booked, whichever comes first. It is slightly different than Max Pass though, in that you can only use it once per day per qualifying ride. If you haven't purchased Lightning Lane Multipass with your tickets before your trip and you want to buy it the day of your park visit, you need to be scanned into the park to purchase it. You can purchase it on the home screen of the app. After your purchase of Lightning Lane Multipass, again on the app, on the bottom right, select the 3 horizontal lines and then under Future Plans, go to Tipboard and then choose the ride that you want to book the next available Lightning Lane time for. You don't have to book your entire party to go on a Lightning Lane ride if they don't all want to. You can split up your party if you want. Also, if you have a park hopper, it is valid for both parks for the day or days that you purchased it. Anyway, these are the qualifying Lightning Lane Multipass rides at Disneyland. Autopia, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, the Haunted Mansion when it comes off of Virtual Queue, probably early in 2025, Indiana Jones Adventure, It's a Small World, the Matterhorn Bobsleds, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, Pirates of the Caribbean, which is apparently temporary, we'll see on that, Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, Space Mountain, and Star Tours. And at DCA, Goofy's Sky School, Grizzly River Run, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Incredicoaster, The Little Mermaid, Monsters Inc., Soarin', Toy Story Midway Mania, and Web Slingers. To use your booked Lightning Lane, you use the Lightning Lane entrance for the ride and you have to scan the Lightning Lane pass on your app on the scanner. You have to scan it in for each member of your party that has it, and it makes such a satisfying da-ding sound when you've scanned in. Also, something to keep in mind, once a Lightning Lane has been booked, you can go into it on your app under Modify and keep refreshing the screen and see if an earlier time comes up. You won't lose or change your reservation unless you actually cancel or modify the reservation and confirm it. So if you have a Lightning Lane booked but it isn't until 9 p.m., at different points throughout the day while you're doing something else, you can refresh the screen multiple times to see if an earlier time will come up. This is a really great tip if your next Lightning Lane is booked beyond 2 hours from the time that you booked it originally. Remember, you can book another Lightning Lane after you scan into that ride for the one that you have currently booked, or 2 hours later, whichever comes first. If you want to maximize your time, you want to try to avoid getting to that 2-hour mark if you can help it. If your next Lightning Lane is booked further than 2 hours out, you want to try to modify it for a closer time if you can. Or if you're fine for waiting for that 2 hours, at the very least, set an alarm for 2 hours after you book the Lightning Lane to remind you to book another one so that you're not going past that 2-hour mark. When you book a Lightning Lane, you have a range of time that you can use it, which is indicated on the app. I think they'll even let you scan in 5 minutes early. Keep in mind, you can only use Lightning Lane once per qualifying ride per day. So if you think you'll want to ride your favorites more than once, I'd recommend saving those Lightning Lanes for later in the day when the park is busy, and instead rope dropping your favorite rides first thing when the park opens. That way you get a short line in the morning with everyone else, and you can skip the line later in the day if you want to ride it a second time. So if you want to maximize your Lightning Lane usage and rides in the day, I'd recommend that you wait until around 10 a.m. to start using it. Also, if a ride that you've booked Lightning Lane for breaks down before your return time, and then your return time comes and goes with the ride still being broken down, you will be issued a multi-experience pass. Here's a hack that not too many people know. You can even try to book a Lightning Lane for a ride if it has just gone down, and if your return time passes, you'll be issued this multi-experience pass. You can use that multi-experience pass for many different rides in the park, even Lightning Lane ones that you've already been on. The app should say what you can book your multi-experience pass for, but if you're not sure, just ask a cast member. After you use that multi-experience pass on your alternative ride, if the original ride that you booked is still down, you could actually technically try to do this again, multiple times, while the ride is still broken down. You will notice that two of the most popular rides, Radiator Springs Racers and Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, are not on these lists. They are not part of the Lightning Lane Multi-Pass offerings. These can be purchased a la carte as Lightning Lane Single Pass if you want to skip the line for them. You can purchase up to 2 of those passes per day, 1 for each ride. You do not need to have Lightning Lane Multi-Pass to purchase Lightning Lane Single Pass. If you do have both, you can book Single Pass and Multi-Pass rides at the same time. There is limited availability on Lightning Lane Single Passes that are available per day. They range in price based on demand from $15 to $25 per person per ride. There is another perk to Lightning Lane Multi-Pass, and that is the fact that PhotoPass is included with your purchase. Currently, Disneyland is offering complimentary digital downloads of attraction photos, but with PhotoPass you can take advantage of free photographs taken around the park from cast members. If they ever add attraction photos to PhotoPass again in the future, those will be included as well. One final note, you will notice a free Genie service on the app. Don't bother with that. It will have you running around back and forth, and it just isn't great at all. Avoid. Anyway, our next video is all about one of the best parts of going to Disneyland, the food! True story. I went to Disneyland this past April and I made a spreadsheet of all the food that I wanted to eat while I was there, even though I knew that it was way more than I could actually get. It had over 100 items. I managed to get through 54 items with the help of my son. I feel very proud, yet also ashamed of this accomplishment. If you want to pre-plan your food, one neat thing in the app is if you go to mobile order something, you can see actual pictures of the food on the mobile order list, but you don't actually have to place the order. The regular menu doesn't have pictures. Also, not every quick service restaurant is on mobile order, but most of them are. So this is a fun tip when you want to visualize telling food to
get in my belly!
You have many different dining options while at Disneyland. There are snack carts, quick service restaurants, sit-down restaurants, so many options, so little stomach space. If you have your heart set on dining at a particular sit-down restaurant, reservations are highly recommended for these Disneyland restaurants. Blue Bayou, Cafe Orleans, Carnation Cafe, River Belle Terrace, Tomorrowland Skyline Lounge, say that fast 5 times, and Oga's Cantina, which is limited to 45 minutes. And these DCA restaurants, Lamplight Lounge, Carthay Circle, which has a couple of options for reservations, and Wine Country Trattoria, which I'm probably not saying right. You can make dining reservations 60 days in advance. They are definitely recommended and they go fast. The bigger your party size, the more difficult it will be to get reservations. Reservations are usually open at 6 a.m. Pacific time, although I have seen them at 3 in the morning also. If you don't get the reservation that you're looking for, don't be discouraged. Keep looking in case someone cancels, even right up to the day before your desired dining date. You could also join a walk-up list and hope to get in on that day in the park. Or you can try going in off times, say for a 4 p.m. early dinner rather than at 6 or 7. There are also paid services like MouseWatcher that you can use to notify you if a reservation becomes available. This is not a Disney service. The most popular reservations are the Blue Bayou at Disneyland and Lamplight Lounge at DCA. You can also book reservations for restaurants at hotels and at downtown Disney dining locations. I personally don't like a ton of reservations filling up my trip, but it is fun to have something to look forward to. There are lots of quick service restaurants that have amazing food, so you can go a whole trip without any meals requiring reservations at all. You can also bring your own food and drinks into the park. Just no loose ice, dry ice, or coolers larger than 24 inches long, 15 inches wide, or 18 inches high. You can use ice packs though. Also, take advantage of mobile order. I can't stress this enough. You can choose your food for the whole day on mobile order if you want. As I said before, not every quick service item is on mobile order, but most of them are. The ones that aren't are usually quick without it. You don't need to be in the park to mobile order, so you can do it on your way there, or while you're in line, or waiting outside in the Esplanade. It's not necessary to do it first thing in the morning unless there's a really popular item that sells out while you're there. You can spend upward of 20 to 40 minutes in line for food at peak times versus a very short wait with mobile order. You can also refill your water at many quick service dining locations around the park at pop machines or water machines, or just ask the cast members at these locations for some water. You can do your own research, but here are some of my recommendations for Disneyland. For mobile order and quick service, the Bengal Barbecue, Ronto Roasters, Jolly Holiday Bakery Cafe, and Docking Bay 7. For the best dining locations for kids, the Golden Horseshoe, Cafe Daisy, Refreshment Corner, and Red Rose Tavern. The best dining locations for special occasions, the Blue Bayou and Cafe Orleans. Here are some of my recommendations for Disney California Adventure. For mobile order or quick service, there's Boardwalk Pizza and Pasta. It doesn't have mobile order, but this location is very quick and efficient. Cocina Cucamonga Mexican Grill, definitely mobile order here, and definitely get the quesadilla. Pim's Test Kitchen, and Award Wieners. The best dining locations for kids, Flo's V8 Cafe, definitely mobile order here. Pim's Test Kitchen, and the Smoke Jumpers Grill. The best dining locations for special occasions, Wine Country Trattoria, Carthay Circle, and the Lamplight Lounge. Of course, these recommendations are highly subjective, so make your own spreadsheet if you're anything like me, and do what works best for you. There are so many options, and I didn't even mention the numerous snack carts, churro carts, which by the way, the churros at Disneyland are good, and they are nothing like the ones at Walt Disney World from what I've heard. Popcorn carts, fruit stands, and corn dog stands around the property. Have fun choosing what you think you'll like the best, and remember, mobile order if you can. Stay tuned for my next video where I talk all about the special dining options, including my personal favorite, character dining. There are also some special dining packages that you can book. The World of Color Dessert Party allows you to experience World of Color from premium seats while enjoying a selection of desserts and cheeses. It even includes an alcoholic beverage for guests 21 and older. Pricing is $89 per guest. Children 2 and under can attend for free, provided they can sit on the lap of an adult. There are also dining packages for World of Color at the dinner buffet at Storytellers Cafe, lunch or dinner at Wine Country Trattoria, or lunch or dinner at the Magic Key Terrace for Magic Key holders only. These dining options include a voucher for the World of Color preferred viewing area. You can make reservations to dine at these restaurants, but you can't book the dining packages via reservation. You need to notify your server if you want the World of Color dining package. Sometimes the Sonoma Terrace offers parade viewing dining packages if there are parades running at DCA. Guests can enjoy a selection of desserts, cheeses, and other foods, as well as unlimited soft drinks and bottled water, coffee, and a specialty mocktail, all from a reserved viewing area. Just go to the Disney website and see if they're currently offering something that you can reserve. Pricing is $89 per guest. There's currently a Magic Happens Parade dining package that you can reserve at the Plaza Inn at Disneyland. There are several meal options and water or soft drinks are included. Your meal comes with a voucher to watch a parade from a special viewing area. Prices are $55 for adults and $28 for kids. Advanced reservations are highly recommended. There are also sometimes fireworks dining packages at the plaza, but they're more rare and usually for holidays like Halloween time, 4th of July, Christmas, and New Year's. You can also get dining packages for Fantasmic. There are 3 restaurant options for this. At the Blue Bayou, you can get a premium package, which is a 4-course lunch or dinner and a voucher that admits you to a separate viewing location to watch Fantasmic from. Prices start at $89 per adult and $35 for kids aged 3 to 9. There are 2 packages at the River Belle Terrace. The premium package is a 3-course dinner, and you can watch Fantasmic seated at your table while you're enjoying your meal. This package is $89 for adults and $45 for kids. The standard package for the River Belle Terrace is a 3-course meal for brunch or dinner, and you receive a voucher to a separate viewing location to watch Fantasmic. The price for this is $55 for adults and $30 for kids aged 3 to 9. And finally, for Fantasmic, you can get a 3-course meal for lunch or dinner from Rancho del Zocalo that comes with a voucher to view Fantasmic from a special viewing location. Packages are $35 for adults and $25 for kids ages 3 to 9. Availability and reservation booking can all be found on the Disneyland website. You can also get a dining package at the Tomorrowland Skyline Terrace, which is an elevated area in Tomorrowland that you can view the fireworks from and take in the evening vibe of Tomorrowland. You can book this just to relax and take in the atmosphere, but the best part of this is the fireworks, if they are showing that evening. You can see them over the Matterhorn, but you can't see the castle or projections from this vantage point. Note that if any of the fireworks shows are cancelled due to weather, usually high winds, Disney doesn't refund you. You do have access to the lounge/viewing area all evening, and you can come and go up until 10 p.m. The price for this is $70 for adults and kids, although kids under 2 can sit on a lap for free. Apparently, there are games and entertainment for everyone to enjoy as well. The Disney website says that the menu options may include cold sandwiches, composed salads, cheese and crackers, fruit, pastries, chocolate, plus a specialty-themed non-alcoholic beverage, unlimited soft drinks, bottled water, or hot chocolate. And now we get to talk about my personal favorite type of dining at Disneyland, character dining. These are so wonderful, whether you're visiting the park by yourself, with family, with friends, with kids, without kids, they're just so much fun. The options for character dining are Minnie and Friends breakfast in the park at the Plaza Inn. This is a breakfast buffet in the park. You need to have a valid park ticket and a reservation for this experience. Adults are $46 and kids from ages 3 to 9 are $27. There is also Goofy's Kitchen at the Disneyland Hotel. This is a breakfast or dinner buffet. The breakfast price for adults is $52 and for kids ages 3 to 9 it's $31. Dinner is $59 for adults and $34 for kids. Mickey's Tales of Adventure breakfast buffet is at the Storytellers Cafe at the Grand Californian Hotel. The character dining covers breakfast and brunch, and adults cost $52, while kids from ages 3 to 9 are $31. And finally, there's the Disney Princess Breakfast Adventures at the Napa Rose at the Grand Californian Hotel. This is a 3-course breakfast meal. It's a high-end dining experience, and children and adults are both $135 each. Okay, so if you've stuck with me this far into the series and you've seen my previous videos, we've covered getting to Anaheim, getting around Anaheim, where to stay, how to get tickets, and what to eat. Stay tuned for our next video where I go over some strategies to enjoy your best day ever at Disneyland. When my husband and I went to Mexico a few years ago, side note, it was 12 years ago. Does that happen to anyone else? These bookmark life events or trips or whatever in our lives all feel like a few years ago, and actually they were a decade or more ago. Just me? Okay, moving on. When we went to Mexico, we were with a group for my sister's wedding. Whenever we'd run into others from our group around the resort, they'd say, "Hey, what are you doing? Come to the pool with us. Come have a drink with us." And we'd always say no because we had a plan and an itinerary of stuff that we wanted to do. And we didn't have time to relax right then because we were off to some outing. How ridiculous. But eventually I said to my husband, maybe we should schedule some free time so that when we're asked to do something spontaneous, we can pretend like we're actually spontaneous people. I have that same mindset at Disneyland. Mostly because I don't get to go near as often as I'd like. Every other day would be perfect, thank you very much. So whenever I'm there, I feel like I have to maximize my time and get as much done as possible. That is one approach you can take, and I've enjoyed every trip immensely that I've done that. But there is something to be said for following the Disney winds and just taking things as they come, sitting and relaxing, people watching, and just not having a plan. Or do a mix of both. The best of both worlds. That sounds like a great approach to me. Of course, it will all depend on your personal preferences, your party size and type, your goals, etc. Are you trying to maximize all of the most popular attractions? Work around a baby or toddler schedule? Are you by yourself or with a big group of friends or family? Will you be getting Lightning Lane Multipass or no? There are so many things to consider, and I can't tell you what will work for your trip exactly, but I can make some general recommendations when it comes to maximizing your time. And if you just want to follow the Disney winds, you don't need me telling you what to do. Just relax and let the park tell you what to do. Usually people want to get a lot of rides done. If that's one of your goals, your best 2 times of the day to get the most rides done are the last 2 or 3 hours of the night before the park closes and first thing in the morning when the park opens at rope drop. In the morning, those first 2 hours are golden times to avoid the biggest crowds. To optimize your morning, aim to get to the Esplanade, which is the area right outside the front gates, before 7:30 in the morning. That's when they'll usually start letting guests into the park. Then you can make your way to the hub, which is the area in front of the castle, to wait for them to drop the rope to various lands. Remember, on some days hotel guests can get in a half an hour early, so if you see people in the park ahead of you, don't panic. You'll still see a good time savings, but to avoid this, plan your rope drop on days that are opposite of when hotel guests can get early entry. The rope will drop at 8 a.m. or whenever the park officially opens, and then you can walk, don't run, to your first attraction. The other best time is the last 2 to 3 hours before park closing, especially if it closes at midnight. Just keep in mind, on days that there are fireworks, Mickey's Toontown and Fantasyland are both closed during and until after the fireworks. I think they reopen at around 10 at night. There's a sort of mini rope drop for this reopening too, so you might be able to get a shorter time in line if you're waiting for the land to reopen. Anyway, here are some recommended rope drop strategies. Whether you will or won't be getting Lightning Lane Multipass, if you want to get a lot of those types of rides in during your day, it's best to start the day off with Lightning Lane attractions. If you don't have Lightning Lane, you'll beat the crowds who will fill up the queues later in the day, and if you do have Lightning Lane, you can ride them once in the morning with shorter lines and once later in the day with Lightning Lane. So with that in mind, it's best not to book your first Lightning Lane rides with return times before 10 a.m., which you will have an hour to use, so your return time is actually between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. So, with all of that in mind, you would want to start off with Space Mountain, then the Matterhorn, Big Thunder Mountain, and Indiana Jones. It's not good to go to Big Thunder right away because they don't start running more than one train until a little later in the day, closer to 9, so you could still be stuck in a longer queue than you were anticipating. Of course, Indiana Jones breaks down often, so make sure it's open before you beeline over there. After that, you could do Pirates or Haunted Mansion, since you're in the area. Right now, at the end of summer 2024, the Haunted Mansion is on virtual queue, which you can book for free on your phone at 2 points during the day, at 7 a.m. and 12 noon. You can access that on the Disneyland app, on the bottom right, and then you scroll down and look for virtual queues. You don't need to be scanned into the park to book this, and it doesn't affect Lightning Lane at all. You won't get to pick your return time for this, but by early 2025 it should be on regular Lightning Lane again, so that's why I'm including it in this section. Anyway, after you do Pirates or Haunted Mansion, it should be just about 10 a.m., and you could check the app, make sure Rise of the Resistance is open, and then head over there. Another day on your trip, you could rope drop Fantasyland. A lot of people like to rope drop Peter Pan. I'd only suggest doing this if you can meet 2 conditions. 1, make sure it is not early entry for Disneyland for hotel guest day, and 2, be at the front gates to Disneyland in the Esplanade by 7 a.m., not 7:30. So essentially you're rope dropping the rope drop. Basically, you want to be at the front of the line when they drop the rope for you to get into Fantasyland. If you can do that, then you can probably get into the Peter Pan queue and on the ride quickly, and it's worth it. But if you're at the back of the rope drop line, you'll probably not beat the crowd for Peter Pan. You might manage to get, say, a 20-minute wait, which is shorter than the usual 30 to 40 minutes, but just don't have your hopes set on this being a huge time savings. You would be wasting a lot of valuable time that you could be doing 3 or more other Fantasyland rides instead. I like rope dropping Alice in Wonderland because that line can easily get to 40 minutes during the day, and you can get a 5-minute line by rope dropping it. After that, I usually go on Dumbo, Snow White's Enchanted Wish, Pinocchio's Daring Journey, and then Casey Jr.'s Circus Train before reevaluating and seeing what ones I want to do next. Keep in mind, sometimes Casey Jr. runs 2 trains and sometimes it only runs 1. If the line goes outside of the chained queue area and there's only 1 train running, wait until a shorter line or until they have 2 trains running. It's best to wait a little bit before you do Storybook Canal boats because they don't have all the boats running right away. Anyway, you can knock out many, if not all on a less busy day, Fantasyland rides in the first 2 to 3 hours of park opening. You can also get a lot done here at night, but they do close Fantasyland during the fireworks, so you won't get access until 10 at night. But if the park closes at midnight, those last 2 hours can be a great option if your group can stay up that late. I mentioned Rise of the Resistance before, but here's some more info on it. Lots of people want to ride it first thing in the morning, but this isn't always the best strategy. Often, it isn't even open until 9 or 10, so you need to listen to cast members at Rope Drop to hear what they're saying about it. But even if it is open, 1, if it's an early entry day at Disneyland for hotel guests, they can rope drop from Fantasyland, so they get a head start on you. And 2, even if there is no lineup at all, it takes a minimum of 20 minutes to go through the queue and go on the ride, and chances are you'll still have a 10 to 20 minute wait at minimum, bringing your time to 30 to 40 minutes to go on the ride. That's a lot of time in the golden hour that you could have gotten 2 or 3 other Fantasyland rides done. A better time for this ride is at 9 or 10 a.m. or at around 7 at night, sometimes a bit later. Another good time to ride is right after the ride comes back online after breakdown. Breakdowns are for a minimum of 45 minutes, but if you can jump in the queue within 15 minutes of the ride being back online, you'll save a lot of time. Of course, you'll have to hang around close to the ride, making yourself available to jump in line, so that, in and of itself, takes time. But with all of that being said, if Rise of the Resistance is your top priority and they're letting guests on it right away at park opening, by all means, do this ride first. Also, keep in mind that this ride closes before the park closes, usually at around 10 p.m. Or you could opt for an entirely different strategy. Rope drop Starbucks on Main Street and avoid the 40-minute lineup that accumulates by 8, and sit with your coffee and watch everyone else scramble to make the most of their time. Then you could meander to the railroad and take that around the park. That's the way Walt intended it, you know. And relax and follow the Disney winds to see what you want to do, and don't even worry about park domination. For rope dropping DCA, the same rules apply. Get to the front gates in the Esplanade before 7:30, know which days have early entry for hotel guests, and when they let you in, listen to the cast members. Often people want to rope drop Radiator Springs racers, but it could be closed until 9 or 10. If it is open and you can rope drop it, great, go for it. It's not as long of a queue and no pre-show like Rise of the Resistance. You won't eat up more than 10 to 20 minutes if it's open and if you're close to the front of the rope drop queue. Another option is to try riding it after 6 or even 8 p.m. Often during this time of day, the posted wait time is much longer than how long you will actually wait. Definitely avoid it between 11 a.m. and 6 at night. The only way to actually skip the line is to buy an individual lightning lane, or you can use single rider for a shorter line. Another DCA rope drop strategy is to rope drop Guardians of the Galaxy, then head to Web Slingers, and then check the app to see if Radiator Springs Racers is open, and if it's not too long of a wait, head there next. A third DCA rope drop strategy is to rope drop Pixar Pier, starting with the Incredicoaster or Toy Story Midway Mania. Or you could do Guardians of the Galaxy, or even Soarin', and then head over to Pixar Pier. You can definitely get all of the rides on Pixar Pier and Paradise Gardens Park done in the first 2 to 3 hours of the day on a rope drop morning, and it's a wonderful feeling to have knocked off that whole section of the park. Just be sure to check the app to make sure that the ride you want to go to first is actually open as you're walking to it, and have a backup plan in case it isn't. This is especially important for rides that are farther apart than other ones that you want to go to. For example, if you want to go to Guardians of the Galaxy, and then the next ride you want to enjoy is at Pixar Pier, and then Guardians isn't open for some reason, you've wasted a lot of precious time walking all that way to have to head to the opposite end of the park after. After those first 2 to 3 hours have passed and the parks start getting busier, you can stop and grab a bite to eat and then start using Lightning Lane Multipass for the rest of the day, filling in the gaps with non-Lightning Lane Multipass rides. Remember, you can book another Lightning Lane Multipass once you've scanned into the Lightning Lane Multipass ride, or after 2 hours have passed, whichever comes first. I like to set an alarm so that I don't let too much time go by and miss my 2-hour mark. You can also try to modify a return time for an earlier time if you're having to book too far out. I have a whole video on this that you can see if you click the link above. Use the app to check wait times for attractions around the park. A few tips: if you see a low wait time for a ride and you're in the vicinity, head there as fast as you can. If you're on the other end of the park though, don't bother. By the time you get there, it will have a higher than usual wait time because everyone is thinking what you're thinking. Also, just take a look at the lineups. The app or wait times posted outside aren't always up to the minute correct. Any line that is full of Lightning Lane guests, either multi-pass or single pass, are going to be long wait lines as they give priority entry to those guests who have paid for Lightning Lane. So if there are a ton of Lightning Lane guests in line, they will clear most or all of those guests out before allowing regular standby into the ride. So even if a ride has a low wait time posted, if you see a ton of Lightning Lane people in the lineup, it's probably going to actually be longer than the wait time posted because they're going to clear out all those people before they let in standby. Just keep that in mind. Also, if there is a ride that doesn't have Lightning Lane and you can see the whole queue, say for Astro Orbiters for example, you can do some simple queue math by just observing. If there are 12 ride vehicles and they fit about 20 guests per cycle, you can time an entire cycle of the ride and say it takes about 4 minutes, and then you estimate 100 people in line, well then it will take about 20 minutes until it's your turn to get on. This is starting to sound a lot like one of those word problems in math where someone is buying 60 watermelons for some reason. Hey, if your kids are missing school to be at Disneyland, have them do your queue math for some Disney learning.
It's fun and educational.
FreshBaked is a Disney YouTube channel and many of his videos are about ride strategies and queue science and the current state of the park. I find his videos helpful to watch before trips so that I know what I'm getting into with the current crowds, events, etc. He just posted a super helpful video on August 17th, 2024 called Our Guided Tour of Disneyland, How to Manage Every Attraction at the Park. In it, he teaches what to look for in every queue before you get in line. This is so helpful for everyone, but especially for those not planning on getting a Lightning Lane multi-pass. I got that Astro Orbiters queue math from him in another recent video. SoCal Disney Dad has these state of the park types of videos as well. I've also used the Touring Plans app. It's very helpful for creating custom plans for the day if you're a planner like me. It costs about $15 for 1 year of the app's service. Disney also has a free Genie service on their app to help you plan your day, but I wouldn't use it. It's completely useless. You can get in line for a ride right up until the park closes, so if you really want to ride something and it's 11:59 and the park closes at midnight, jump in line quick and you'll still get to ride it. I've even found that the wait times at the end of the night are usually higher on the app or sign outside the ride than they actually are, so your wait probably won't be very long. So jump in line and squeeze in every minute of fun that you can. I like to have a general plan in mind for lands that I'd like to cover each day so that I'm not walking back and forth from one end of the park to the other, but that's a personal preference. You can usually, if it's not super busy, get all of DCA done in one day and Disneyland in 2 or 3 days, or at least most of the rides, maybe not everything like the canoe and boat ships on the rivers of America. But don't think that you'll be bored or run out of things to do if you want to take longer. For one thing, you can always ride your favorite rides more than once. On a 5-day trip, my family usually rides Guardians of the Galaxy and the Incredicoaster 4 or 5 times each. And at DCA, there are a bunch of shows that you can see that are great for taking breaks or filling in time while waiting for Lightning Lane multi-pass return times. Hollywoodland alone has Turtle Talk with Crush, the Animation Academy, PhilharMagic, and the Sorcerer's Workshop, which is not a show but a hands-on experience teaching a little bit about animation. There's also the Disney Junior Dance Party, which is great for little kids to jump around and dance and get their sillies out. Avengers Campus has the Amazing Spider-Man Show, the Guardians of the Galaxy Dance-Off, the Dora Milaje, and the Avengers Assemble Show. Carsland has a lighting ceremony at sunset each night. Just check what time sunset is and come about 10 minutes before to the traffic light area. It's just a little lighting ceremony with dancing and music, and it's so cute and fun. World of Color is a great show to see, and there are also often seasonal shows, parades, live music, etc., depending on what event or festival is going on at DCA. I say all of that to say that you could very easily spend 2 days at DCA if you want to see more than just the rides. Of course, Disneyland has its fair share of shows too. There's live music and entertainment all around the parks, like the Dapper Dans, the Disneyland Band, the Straw Hatters, and the Pearly Band, who also do a cute little show in front of the castle with Mary Poppins and Bert. There are also little cavalcades that go down Main Street. There are shows at the Royal Theatre, Tangled and Beauty and the Beast. There's also Fantasmic nightly, fireworks, or projections every night. Sometimes the fireworks are just on the weekends. The Magic Happens Parade, the Bootstrappers, and the Jambalaya Jazz Band. And just lots of opportunities to be entertained besides rides all throughout the park. And of course, they have their seasonal entertainment offerings as well, such as the Christmas Fantasy Parade, or Halloween, or special things for things like Pixar Fest that happened this past summer. So, whether you dominate the park or let the Disney winds guide you, or a little bit of both, it's up to you. And if you make a plan, mentally prepare yourself to adapt or change it. I find that to be a very helpful tip for type A people like myself. Have a plan, but also be mentally prepared to be flexible. And even as a planner, I enjoy Disney Wednesdays myself too. I had a trip this year with a group of friends and we spent a lot of time together on Dapper Day. We couldn't all be together each day of the trip because of the various travel schedules, but this day we planned on doing together. We also had other pockets of time together throughout the trip too, and they were just some of the best times I've ever had at a Disney park. No real plan, just laughter, joy, and memories to last a lifetime. Leave time for that. In our next video, we'll talk about rides, the reason we're all here, so don't miss that one. I went to Disneyland for the first time when I was 3 years old. I don't know for sure, but to my recollection, my first ride, or one of the first rides that I went on when we were there, was Star Tours. I was ruined, in a bad way, for every other ride after that, it seemed. I had a list of questions that I needed my parents to answer before I went on each ride after that. Do the seats move? Is it dark? Is it scary? Do you get wet? I added that last one after the River Rapids ride at Knott's Berry Farm. I say all that to say, unless spoilers are a big deal, it's helpful if you're going with someone who has anxiety about certain rides or small kids to watch ride-throughs of rides before you go, so that they know what to expect. You can't get the full sense of the ride sensations, but at least you can prepare for dark parts or props that can appear scary to kids, or just skip those rides altogether. If you have any physical injuries or disabilities or pregnancies, etc., read the warnings before you go on rides to make sure that they're safe for you. Physically speaking, the Matterhorn is one of the roughest rides on the body, especially for adults as we get older, and can apparently get injured doing such strenuous things such as sleeping and turning your head. I brace my hands on the seat in front of me, and I've never had any issues, but everyone is different. Space Mountain isn't too jerky, but it's completely in the dark, and you can't really see the track to anticipate how your body will move. Indiana Jones and Star Tours are a bit jerky, but not Matterhorn level jerky. If you're prone to motion sickness, Star Tours has that going for it as well. Tiana's Bayou Adventure, when it opens, will have one big drop and several smaller drops. Rise of the Resistance, spoiler alert, will have a drop sensation that's unexpected. You can watch ride-throughs of that to find out when it is if you want to prepare little ones or yourself. Finding Nemo subs isn't good for people who are claustrophobic, but you can ask to watch it in a special room that shows what the ride is without being in a submarine. There's a Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough. Did you know that? But it has a lot of stairs. They have a room where you can watch the experience from instead, much like Finding Nemo. Chip 'n Dale's Gadget Coaster is a great introductory roller coaster for little ones. At DCA, Guardians of the Galaxy has a lot of drops and it goes up and down. I told my 8-year-old the first time he rode it that he has to go more than once on our trip because the first time can be terrifying if you don't know what to expect, but then it gets more fun each time you ride it. The Incredicoaster has a very fast launch, and it's the same as Guardians in the sense that it can be intense the first time, but it gets more fun each time you ride it. It also has a loop and can also cause nausea if you're prone to that. Grizzly River Run has a bear growling in a cave, and also has a couple of drops and some rapids. Soarin' can give you a weird sensation since you're supposed to be flying. It could cause motion sickness as well. If you're traveling with kids, make sure that they're tall enough before you go. If you look on the app, each ride says height requirements. Don't cheat. Sometimes people buy products online that can help your kid be taller, like shoe inserts. Don't do that. The height requirements are for the safety of your child. If your kid is right at the minimum height, there is a risk that they might not be tall enough when you get there. You're taller in the morning than at night, so you can try heading to that ride first thing in the morning and mentally prepare your child that they could be rejected and hope for the best. But just keep in mind that cast members are trying to keep your child safe, so don't get upset at them. Just try to prepare expectations before, no matter what the circumstance is, so that there isn't disappointment. You can also use Ride or Switch for any rides that your child isn't tall enough for, or that might be too scary for, or that they just have no desire to go on. Simply tell the cast member at the entrance that you'd like a Ride or Switch pass, and then one adult stays with the children, or child, while the other goes in line and rides the ride. Then the other adult can show the pass and skip the line for their turn so that they don't both have to wait in line the full length of the queue. There's also a buddy pass for select rides. They aren't offered all the time, but you can ask the cast member. They offer it for Monsters, Inc. and Winnie the Pooh, although it's called a Roo Pass for that ride. Ask the cast member at the entrance to the ride if they're being offered at that time. It's for smaller groups of 1 to 2 people. However, if you have 2 adults with 2 kids, for example, you can split up into 2 groups. It basically allows them to fill in ride vehicles that have an extra 2 spots available. It can be helpful to save time, but you miss the theming of the main queue. It's worth a shot though if you don't have Lightning Lane Multipass. Some rides offer single rider. At DCA, this includes Soarin' Around the World, Radiator Springs Racers, Goofy's Sky School, Grizzly River Run, the Incredicoaster, and Web Slingers. At Disneyland, these rides include the Matterhorn Bobsleds, Space Mountain, and Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. This is to fill in rows for rides that they can't fill in with the people from the regular queue. So, for example, Radiator Springs Racers is one of the most popular rides that uses single rider. The ride vehicle has 2 rows of 3 seats. Many families or people that come in groups of 2 or 4. That leaves an extra 2 empty seats on the ride. They fill those seats with single riders. You don't have to be alone to use this, however. As long as everyone in your group is 7 years or older, and you don't mind being split up while you're on the ride, you can use single rider on available rides to save a significant amount of time in line. It is not cheating to do this, even if a whole family uses it. It doesn't add any extra time to the standby lineup, as it's only filling seats that would otherwise be empty. Just make sure that your family has a meetup plan when the ride is done, especially if you're going to do this with kids who are old enough so that they don't get lost. The best ride to use this is Radiator Springs Racers, but keep an eye out for it for many other attractions at Disneyland and DCA. They don't always offer this first thing in the morning. Sometimes you have to wait until a longer queue has accumulated. SoCal Disney Dad recently did a video on this in August or September 2024, and it's worth watching as he goes through which rides it's worth it to use it on, like Radiator Springs Racers, and which ones maybe it's not so worth it, like Soarin'. So definitely check that video out. I'll leave a link to that in the description. There's also Disability Access Service, or DAS as it's better known as. This is a service for guests with developmental disabilities such as autism or something similar who cannot wait in conventional queues for extended periods of time. You can either book a call to talk to someone to determine eligibility and pre-register for the service 30 days before your trip, or talk to someone at the Accessibility Services window located outside of the park in the Esplanade on your first park day. If you're eligible, you can add up to 3 other members of your party to your pass so that they can go on the ride with the guest with the DAS pass. DAS passes are valid for the length of the ticket or 120 days, whichever is shorter. There are also services for guests with mobility issues. Wheelchair and ECV rentals are available to the right of the park entrance before you enter the park. There are also various options available for people with mobility issues that have an ECV or wheelchair that can't fit into the standard queue. If this is the case, speak to the cast member at the attraction you wish to go on, and they will advise you on a return time to come to the attraction at the secondary entrance location for that ride. This only applies to certain rides at Disneyland. DCA rides are newer and therefore are more accessible than some older Disneyland attractions. I'll put links in the description from the Disneyland website for more information on DAS and other accessibility services. Next up in this series, Disney Entertainment and Characters. So much fun. You won't want to miss this one. I remember my first trip to Disneyland as an adult when I hadn't been there since I was 3. I was with my family and we had just ridden Pirates of the Caribbean. When we came out from the ride, we headed over to the Rivers of America, and right at that moment, the Fantasmic scene that used to be in the show with Pirates of the Caribbean on the Columbia came right past us on the river. We stopped and watched it, and I remember thinking, what a great coincidence, and I marveled at how magical the moment felt. The feelings we get when seeing Disney shows can create magical memories that last a lifetime. Even if you don't have time to see every show, try to make time for some, or at least one show, during your trip. Just make sure to look up the schedule for the shows and be aware of what will be happening during your trip to avoid disappointment for missing something that you wanted to see. Parades vary throughout the year. The main parade at Disneyland is Magic Happens, but this parade is suspended when there are seasonal periods of the year such as Halloween and Christmas. This past summer in 2024, there were two parades, Magic Happens at Disneyland and Better Together, a Pixar Pals celebration at DCA. During the Halloween season, the Frightfully Fun Parade is at DCA during Oogie Boogie nights only, and it can be viewed if you have a ticket to the Oogie Boogie Bash. During the Christmas season, the Christmas Fantasy Parade is at Disneyland. At Disneyland, the parades alternate what end of the parade route that they start at. The two ends of the parade are on Main Street and by It's a Small World. So, if you're opposite the starting end, you'll have a longer wait before the parade starts for you. Usually the end closest to It's a Small World is less busy, so you can look there for a good spot. You can also snag a good spot by the Hub, which is near the Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse statue by the castle, if you hang out around there about an hour before showtime. The cast members will take down the ropes and you can get a front row spot without having to wait a couple of hours. You can also find a similar situation near the fire station if you wait there about 20 to 30 minutes before the parade starts. At DCA, none of the parades that they've had in the past couple of years have been so popular that you have to find a spot long before it starts. Usually about 5 to 10 minutes before they start is sufficient. However, if they ever bring back Paint the Night, I suspect you'd need to find a spot ahead of time like you do at Disneyland, as this is a very popular parade. Fireworks change throughout the year. In 2024, they had Wondrous Journeys, Together Forever, a Pixar nighttime spectacular. In the fall, they have Halloween Screams, and the Christmas season will feature the Believe in Holiday Magic show. You can also experience Fire of the Rising Moons, which is watching the fireworks from Galaxy's Edge with Star Wars music. Fireworks are usually nightly from May to Labor Day, and during the Christmas season in November and December. They're also nightly for a few weeks in March and April for spring break. For the rest of the year, they're Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights only. When they don't have fireworks, they have nightly projection shows at Disneyland. To find a prime spot for the fireworks, you usually have to find a spot a couple of hours in advance. But if you're okay being further back a bit or not centered, you can usually get a decent spot an hour or so before the show. Just make sure there are no trees obstructing your view. You can also watch fireworks from It's a Small World, and it's usually not as busy there. If you want to watch them from Galaxy's Edge, usually you can get a good spot just a few minutes before the show starts. Disney just announced a new dining package for fireworks in Galaxy's Edge at Docking Bay 7. This new dining package will be available beginning in November of 2024. However, Disney has not yet announced when bookings will be open, but they did say that booking details will be coming soon. Also, keep in mind that fireworks could be cancelled any night due to high winds. They test the wind levels before every show. Even if it might not appear windy, it still could be unsafe for them to run the show. If that's the case, usually they'll just do a projection show instead. At DCA, they have World of Color nightly for most of the year, which is a water and projection show. For World of Color, you can get a free virtual queue for access to the preferred viewing area. The virtual queues are released on the Disneyland app at 12 o'clock noon, and everyone in your party that you're getting a virtual queue for need to be checked in the park to get it. If you have a virtual queue, you can enter the viewing area approximately 45 minutes before the show starts. If you don't have a virtual queue, you can go to the standby viewing area about 30 to 45 minutes before the show starts to find a spot. The best areas are anywhere across from the Pixar Pal Around, although not too far from either edge on the sides. Also, keep in mind if you're right up front, you will probably get wet. If you're trying to maximize your day, go to the second showing as it's right at park closing, so you won't have to use park hours to watch it. At Disneyland, Fantasmic is a popular nightly show in Frontierland on the rivers of America. When there are two showings of Fantasmic, if you can stay later, it's always better to get to the second showing because it will be far less busy and you won't need to get there as early to snag a good spot. Otherwise, it's best to look for a good spot at least an hour before showtime. For any show, you'll need to be in the taped off or roped off sections to watch the show. The walkways behind the viewing areas need to stay clear. There are special roped off areas for dining packages that you'll need a voucher to watch from. You can check out my video on this if you click above. If you're uncertain of where you're allowed to watch a show from, you can always ask a cast member. When viewing the show, it's better to be closer to the center of the stage area. FreshBaked made a great strategy guide video in 2022, so you can check that out for more detailed tips. I'll put the link in the description. For all of these shows, the parades, fireworks, Fantasmic, and World of Color, you can also get special dining or dessert packages, which I've made a video about and I'll link to above. Besides the big shows, there are smaller shows all throughout both parks, and they're wonderful to just stop and enjoy for a few minutes here and there. Check out the app for entertainment options and showtimes at Disneyland, including the Disneyland Band, the Pearly Band, the Dapper Dans, the Straw Hatters, the Bootstrappers, the Jambalaya Jazz Band, and the Flag Retreat Ceremony. At DCA, there's Avengers Assemble, The Amazing Spider-Man, the Dora Milaje, the Guardians of the Galaxy Dance-Off, the Five and Dime, the Green Army Patrol, and the Paradise Garden Bandstand. In the afternoons, when rides are crowded and it's hotter, at Disneyland, go see indoor shows like the Tiki Room or storytelling at the Royal Theatre. Well, that's not really inside, but at least it's in the shade. Or at DCA, go to Animation Academy, Turtle Talk with Crush, Veil Her Magic, and the Disney Junior Dance Party for little kids. Those 4 are all in Hollywoodland at DCA. I'll just cover characters briefly here because I don't think there's enough for a separate video. Meeting characters is pretty easy at Disneyland and DCA, and you can get a photo with them or autograph without waiting in a long line. You can sort the map in the app for characters, and you'll find spots around the park with lines to meet characters at various times throughout the day. A lot of times they're just roaming around and there isn't a line, so you kind of just jump in and be respectful to others and grab a quick picture or say hello. Places like Galaxy's Edge, Fantasyland, and Avengers Campus usually have a lot of characters roaming around like this. There are also some dedicated character meet and greet locations in both parks where you line up and can get a picture with characters. At Disneyland, you can meet Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse at each of their respective houses in Mickey's Toontown. These meet and greets are in the app, on the map under Attractions. You can meet princesses at the Royal Hall, which is to the left of the castle. You can meet Tinkerbell in Pixie Hollow. These meet and greets are in the app, on the map under Entertainment, although I don't think they show up when it's past their meet and greet ending time. I found information on Pixie Hollow and the Tinkerbell meet and greet on the Disneyland website for today, and the ending time was at 2:30. But when I checked the app at 6 o'clock, she wasn't on there. If all else fails, ask a cast member for assistance. Occasionally, they have special meet and greets near Big Thunder Mountain. There are also seasonal meet and greets like Santa during Christmas or Jack Skellington and Sally during Halloween. At DCA, you can meet Lightning McQueen, Tow Mater, Red the fire truck, and sometimes even Cruz Ramirez by the Cozy Comb Motel. You can meet Anna or Elsa or Olaf, or sometimes a combination of them, in the same building as the Animation Academy and Turtle Talk with Crush off Hollywood Boulevard in Hollywoodland. You can meet Baymax or Hero at San Francisco Square. There are sometimes Pixar characters on Pixar Pier. Occasionally they have special meet and greets by Redwood Creek Challenge, and as I said before, there are characters that roam around the lands too. You'll see a lot of that in Avengers Campus. They also have lineups to meet characters like Iron Man or Spider-Man in Avengers Campus as well. So my main advice with characters that have a designated meeting place is to know the schedule and plan accordingly. Also, in the case of locations that have multiple character options, like Anna, Elsa, Olaf, Baymax, Hero, Lightning McQueen, etc., that meet at the same spot, but not necessarily at the same time, prepare yourself or your little ones accordingly. You don't want to hype them up for meeting Elsa and then they're disappointed that it's Olaf. And as far as roaming characters, just hope for the best and that you'll meet who you really want to meet and have fun with it. And treat them with the utmost respect and understanding. They're really all so amazing and you can have some really special interactions. And if you really want to guarantee character meet and greets and you can afford it, book one of the 3 character dining options, which I discuss in more detail in the link above. In my next video, we'll talk in more detail about the Disneyland app, so look out for that video. Do you like being on your phone all day, draining your battery and missing the magical moments happening around you? If so, going to Disneyland might be for you. I'm joking. Sort of. Mostly. But that is a legitimate complaint people have about going to the parks nowadays. There's just so much time spent looking on your phone, it seems. and some of that might be unavoidable, especially if you use Lightning Lane Multipass. However, if you take a bit of time to study the app before you go and become familiar with it, you might have a faster time using it in the parks, which will give you more time to take things in and fully experience your trip. For some things on the app, there are more than one way to get to what you're looking for, so if you navigate a different way than I do and it works for you, great! When you first open the app, on the main home screen, if you scroll about halfway down, you can see the park hours just in case you forgot for that day. Before you even get to the park, you'll want to link your tickets to the app, and if you're going with your family or another person, it's usually easier to add everyone's tickets together. That way you can get through the front gates faster and ensure that any Lightning Lanes that you book are all together. You'll also want to add your credit card information for the ease of buying Lightning Lane, if you want to, and mobile ordering food. To view your tickets, you can access them by selecting the far right option on the bottom of the home screen. This is also where you would link them. The middle plus sign button on the bottom of the app is where you would make dining reservations, which you can do 60 days before your trip. You can also mobile order food from here. You can order it for the next available window or schedule it for later in the day. You can also sort it by what has the next available window or what's closest to you, so that's a neat feature. If you have Lightning Lane Multipass, PhotoPass is included with that, so if you get a PhotoPass cast member to take pictures of you, open up the link PhotoPass photos, and then the cast member will scan the barcode and the photos will link to your account. This is where you would enter the ride attraction photo numbers as well. These are currently being offered for free to all guests. You will also use this section of the app to book Lightning Lane Multipass. And here you will see the tip board. You can sort it by park, see ride wait times in here, and book and modify your Lightning Lanes. Also, it's a good idea to take screenshots of your reservations, Lightning Lane bookings, virtual queues, food orders, etc. to have as proof to show cast members in case there's a glitch with the app. It's not common, but it can happen. When you're in the park, your app has more options than I can show you here from home. You can see mobile orders that you placed. You can even modify the arrival window like you can for Lightning Lanes. You can view your booked Lightning Lanes here and scan in using the barcode. You can also access the chat feature and they will ask you if you're in the park so that you can expedite your service if you have an urgent question. Of course, cast members around the parks are always happy to help too. The map is another helpful feature of the app. The default view is for attraction wait times, which is of course very helpful. You can also show things in list format rather than just viewing them on the map. You can look at menus for dining locations on here. You can see the entertainment offerings around the park and what time they'll be at a particular location. Under Guest Services and then List, you can see a bunch of things that you can sort the map for, like accessibility options, locker rentals near the front of each park, guest relations, photo spots that are popular, what rides are available for single rider, baby care centers, where you can rent an ECV or wheelchair, stroller rentals, and lots more. Since I mentioned it, there are 2 baby care centers, one at each park, and they are great locations where you can have a quiet and private area that has a nursing room with chairs, changing room with tables, toddler-sized toilets, feeding area with high chairs, kitchen with a sink, and microwave. There's also a vending machine that has formula, baby food, juice, diapers, wipes, sunscreen, pacifiers, and over-the-counter medications for your purchase with a credit card. At Disneyland, you can find it when you're walking towards the castle on the right, past the Plaza Point shop, and at DCA by the Ghirardelli soda fountain in San Francisco, just past Cars Land. You can also sort the app for bathrooms, dining options, and certain character meet and greets, although it doesn't include free roaming characters like in Fantasyland or Avengers Campus or Galaxy's Edge. Since I'm not at Disneyland right now while I'm making this, which I'm very sad about, I can't show you all the features, but SoCal Disney Dad has 2 helpful videos on navigating the app while in the parks, so I'll link those in the description. Also, while you're in the app, take a look at the list of prohibited items. It will save you a potential headache at security. This also gives guidelines for strollers. They can't be bigger than 31 inches by 52 inches, and wagons are not allowed unless they are for special medical purposes, in which case I think you can get a special tag for them at the Accessibility Services window outside the park in the Esplanade. So yeah, that's the basics of the app. Take some time to familiarize yourself with it before your trip so that you're not missing magical moments because you don't know where to go to book a lightning lane. And make sure you bring an external charger because you will drain your battery. It is
Inevitable.
If you forget, they have them around the park in kiosks for sale. You can also put your phone on airplane mode before going into rides like Indiana Jones because there's no service and your phone uses a lot of battery searching for a signal. Anyway, stay tuned for my next video on some suggestions of what to pack or do before you leave on your trip. One of the best parts of going on a vacation, especially a Disney vacation, is the anticipation. It's so exciting to have a Disney trip to look forward to. That's probably why a lot of people help fight the post-Disney trip blues by booking their next trip as soon as they get home from their last trip, or even while they're still there. In this video, I have some suggestions of some things that you can do before your trip. Some are practical, some are fun, but really they're all fun because they help build up the excitement for going to Disneyland. If you have time, watch walkthrough videos or study the map, or both at the same time, before your trip. I remember my first trip in my adult life and I had no clue about the layout of the park. And on my first night there, I had to separate from my group and run to the baby care center for a diaper because I didn't pack enough for the day and find my way from Fantasyland at night. I could do that with my eyes closed now, but back then I remember being quite worried about getting lost and separated from my group. I managed to find my way, but yeah, I wish I knew my way around for that first trip. I have zero spatial awareness, and I had no clue where I was for most of the trip. So, if you haven't been before, it really helps to get around the park without having to look at the map for where you need to go the whole time. And if you watch walkthrough videos of the whole park while simultaneously studying the map, it's a good way of doing it. Also, be aware of the park hours on the days that you're going. Some periods of the year have earlier closing hours, especially when it isn't the peak season. Also check show times for things like fireworks if those are a priority for you to make sure that they're on for the day that you're there. At the same time, be mindful that they could always cancel fireworks if the wind levels are too high or other shows due to bad weather. But plan ahead as best as you can while keeping in mind that the unexpected closure could occur. Also, be aware of ride closures. Usually they happen more in the earlier part of the year or when they're preparing for Halloween or Christmas. However, there are more closures than usual this year, in 2024, because of the construction on Tiana's Bayou Adventure and the Haunted Mansion queue refurb. Next year is the 70th anniversary, so they might be just trying to get things in tip-top shape before that as well. The Disneyland website has a refurbishment calendar, so check that for the most up-to-date closure information. If you require Disability Access Services, or DAS, for somebody in your party, you can pre-register for that 30 days before your trip, so go to the Disneyland website to do that. Beyond your standard packing list, there are a few specific things that I like having on hand, so here they are in no particular order. I like to refill my water around the park while I'm there, but I don't always like the taste of the water, so I bring water flavoring from home. Make sure you bring comfortable shoes that are already broken in. I usually pack multiple shoes and alternate on different days. Someone suggested taking ibuprofen every 4 hours to help with the foot soreness. We didn't take it that often, but we did a few times and it did help. We also soaked our feet in ice water in the tub at the hotel at the end of the night. That probably helped more. Some people also bring Epsom salts too for a foot soak. In the winter and spring months, a coat or possibly even a rain poncho is recommended. There's usually less rain past April, but it can definitely rain between November, December, and April. A coat for warmth in the early morning and late night is a good idea. For the rest of the year, a sweater for the evenings and early mornings is probably sufficient. For those hot days, cooling towels, personal fans, chapstick, sunscreen, and hats are also important. You could even bring a sun umbrella and drink lots of water. If you're traveling with young children in a stroller, then a stroller fan is definitely a must also. Even if rain isn't expected, some people like to bring ponchos for the water rides like Tiana's Bayou Adventure and Grizzly River Run. You can buy them at the park, but they're usually cheaper elsewhere. It depends on the time of year how wet you get. They can turn up or down the soaking the guest factor. Usually the warmer the wetter you can get, which you might like. However, my son got soaked in April and his legs were chafing walking around in wet shorts after, and he eventually had to change. On that note, usually I wrap my feet in bags or I change into sandals on wet rides because I've gotten soaked feet before which resulted in blisters and that can be enough to ruin a trip. I just pack small flip-flops in my backpack. You might also want to bring some American quarters for the Frontierland shooting expedition, or a few little activities in a few of the shops that take them. I know the pressed penny machines take a credit card now. I'm not sure what other places do, or if any of the pressed penny machines actually still take pennies or quarters. Also, definitely bring battery banks to charge your phone throughout the day. Bring earplugs if you have a little one who might be sensitive to loud noises from shows like Fantasmic, World of Color, or the fireworks, or if you have someone in your party that's overstimulated by the ambient noises of the crowd, music, rides, etc. If you're traveling with young kids, you might want to bring a portable potty seat with you and some post-it notes to cover the flushing sensors. If you have a little one who's under 3 but looks like they could be older than 3, bring ID to prove that they don't need a ticket. If you get any specialty tickets like military or Canadian resident, if they offer that in the future, bring the appropriate ID to prove that you're eligible for those discounts. If you want to drink alcohol, and you could be asked for ID and you're from Canada, or outside of the United States, bring your passport into the parks as this is the only ID that they accept. I pack a little cold care kit that I keep at the hotel in case we get sick. I also use lots of hand sanitizer at the parks and peroxide wipes. I also bring things like band-aids when I'm in the parks, but they do have a first aid center at each park, so they can help you out in that way also. You can also pre-shop for some souvenirs outside of the park before you go to save some money. Local stores in Anaheim like Target have lots of things, or sometimes even the hotel gift shops. Or look online before your trip. Etsy has lots of ear vendors. In my experience, little kids need strollers. How old will they be when they can stop? Well, only you can answer that. I've found though, even if your kid doesn't use a stroller at home, say when they're 4 for example, they will need one at Disneyland. You can bring your own, and most airlines will let you check one for free, or you can rent one from a service in Anaheim like City Stroller Rentals. You can also rent them at Disneyland, outside of the Disneyland entrance to the right. However, they're just not as comfortable as other ones that you could get, and they don't have as many features that might be handy for you. Anyone can bring in outside food and drinks, but especially if you're traveling with kids, make sure you have some snacks that you know that they'll like. Whether you're stuck in a long line or waiting for a show to start, or it's in between meals, or your kid just doesn't like the meal that you bought, snacks can save the day. Ziploc bags are handy to have in case you have a leftover food item that you want to enjoy later in the day. Bringing reusable straws so that you don't have to deal with paper ones that can dissolve is also helpful. There are lockers inside both parks near the front entrances, so if you have a backpack full of just-in-case stuff that you don't want to haul around, the lockers are very helpful for storing your things. Just don't forget to get your bag before you leave the park for the night. Seems obvious, but if you're leaving DCA at closing and then heading to Disneyland for an extra couple of hours, then you might forget. They aren't transferable between parks, so if you get one at DCA and then you want to use one at Disneyland, you have to pay for another locker rental. And of course, this is optional, but if you have time, watch the movies that the rides and shows are based on, especially if you've never seen them before or it's been years since you have. We did that for my son, and he got way more out of our last trip. I have a video here that I've made, including a free printable, that lists everyone represented in both parks. Just click the link above for Disneyland and the suggested video at the end of that one for DCA. Next up in this series, a short video on souvenirs. This isn't a long video, but it just has a few suggestions for less expensive or more unique souvenirs for your Disneyland trip. Of course, there are stores everywhere and they have so many great options, and it will be literally impossible to choose. And then you'll have to decide on an adorable Grogu Spirit jersey, and then before you leave, they'll drop a new Tomorrowland line and you'll have to make a choice. Or get it all. Life is tough. Anyway, here are some suggestions that aren't as in your face as all of the typical Disney merch. Pressed pennies are all around the resort, including in the hotels. On the app, under Search, type in Pressed, click Pressed Coin Machines, and then find them on the map. There are silhouettes on Main Street in the Silhouette Studio. They're around $12 or $13 a person, and you can bring photos of kids who aren't there or even pets. They take about 60 seconds each to cut out, and they're amazing to watch them work. You can also buy a frame for about $20. You can get special buttons from City Hall or many of the bigger shops. Just ask the cast members working at a particular location to see what they have. Usually they're for celebrating birthdays, anniversaries, first visits, or really anything, as they can write whatever you're celebrating on the ones that are specially for celebrating something. There are caricature paintings in New Orleans Square, and you can also bring photos of people who aren't there or pets to include them. It's around $30 for a profile picture and $40 for the front view, per person included in the drawing. Provost Park Pass did a video on this, which I will link in the description. Most of the Disney stores have pins that you can buy, and you can even engage in pin trading with cast members. If you see any cast members with pins on a lanyard, ask them about pin trading. This is a whole thing that people can really get into and have a lot of fun with. You can also get custom ears at the Plaza Point shop at Disneyland. You have to pre-purchase the ears from any Disney souvenir shop. There are a specific pair that they need to do the paintings on. Ask a cast member for help if you're not sure which ones. There are only a certain number of available spots at Plaza Point each day, so you might have to get there early to get an appointment. Provost Park Pass also did a video on this, which I will link in the description as well. You can get Disney and Pixar artwork from Nick's Knacks located at Pixar Pier. Choose from artwork that they've already made or request artwork from their art selection. This falls under the unique category, but not necessarily the cheap category. If you go to the Animation Academy in Hollywoodland at DCA, you can learn how to sketch popular Disney characters, and you can bring home your artwork, so that makes a unique, free souvenir as well. Of course, you can also book a droid building or lightsaber crafting experience. They actually call it scrap metal, as to not draw attention of the First Order. But you can do that in Galaxy's Edge for a truly unique memory. Reservations are required, and these are also not cheap, but they are very special. On our last trip, we brought a lightsaber from home that is designed for heavy dueling, but we also did the droid building experience with my 8-year-old, and he loved it. Plus, we put the completed droid in droid daycare for free so that we didn't have to carry him around for the rest of the day, which was super handy. I think he mostly behaved himself, but I'm not sure about that. If you or someone in your party wants a lightsaber, but you don't want to pay the $220 or more for the experience, which is super cool, but very expensive, you can also get lightsabers at the Star Wars Trading Post in downtown Disney or at the Star Trader in Tomorrowland for much cheaper. Not as fancy, but still pretty cool, and lots of customizable options. So those are just some ideas for unique, cheap, or even free items that you can get on your trips to help you remember your magical time. In our next video, I'll talk about some ideas of what you can do on your off days, so look out for that one. Disneyland trips are so fun. So fun. But unless you build in some R&R time, they are not very relaxing. They're the type of trip you come home from needing a bit of a vacation from your vacation. My last trip was just my son and I, and we got about 5 hours of sleep a night. Restful and relaxing, it was not, but it was still one of our best trips ever, so no complaints from me. I've done several types of Disneyland trips, ones that are more spread out and relaxed so that you can do lots of other activities in the area, and ones that are so quick that you don't even have time to sleep, let alone relax. I prefer the first kind myself, but of course, those are not always possible because of time off work or school or higher costs or other factors. If you're able to build in a day or two of rest during your trip, here are some suggestions of what you can do on your days away from the parks. If you want to do other theme parks, which is not very restful but definitely fun, Universal Studios Hollywood is about an hour away and Knott's Berry Farm is about 15 minutes away. Of course, these times are dependent on traffic. On all of the trips that I've done, other theme park days, I've only done those other parks for one day. I've completed all of the rides at Universal in one day with an express pass, and Knott's, well, we didn't get their fast lane pass, but we did get most of their rides done in a day, although it wasn't a very busy day. Universal Studios is better for older kids. There isn't a whole lot of things for little ones. My son was 8 on our last Universal trip, and he enjoyed it and was tall enough for all the rides. When he was 3, we took a Disney trip with my dad. One day we went to Knott's Berry Farm. My husband and I did all of the adult rides and left our son at the Airbnb with my dad. Then later in the day, my dad brought our son, and we took him on all of the Camp Snoopy rides, which he loved, so it was a great balance for the day. Knott's has more roller coasters than Disneyland, and Universal has a few roller coasters and thrill rides, but a lot of their rides have screens, so be aware of that if you get nauseous with screen attractions. There's also Knott's Soak City, which is a water park that is open seasonally. Legoland is also an option, although I haven't been there personally. I've heard that it's recommended for kids aged 2 to 12. I've also seen recommendations that it is for kids aged 6 to 9. And I've also heard that you can't do it all in one day. So, if and when I get there myself, I'll make a video with some more recommendations. But until then, it's a place that exists that you can go to, and that's about all I know. They also have a seasonal water park too. I've also heard that you should get their apple fries or chips or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, apparently they're good. Anyway, other places that I have gone to and things that I've done include dinner theater events for the whole family, including Medieval Times, which is knights jousting, and the Pirates Dinner Adventure, 2 separate things. We did the Medieval Times one when our son was 2, and the Pirates Dinner Adventure when he was 3. Both were fun, and we were able to assure him that no one was actually getting hurt in the theatrics. They're for the whole family, but if you're going with kids, you know them best, so if you think that they'll be sensitive to fake fights, then you might not want to go to these. You can also ask me any questions in the comments below and I'll answer them as best as I can. You can probably find videos on YouTube as well to give you an idea of what to expect at these shows. We've also gone to the Long Beach Aquarium, which was great. We've gone to Huntington Beach, Laguna Beach, which was so pretty, and Redondo Beach. Victoria Beach is close to Laguna Beach, and there's a really cool tower there that's a historical landmark that the area is known for. I haven't been to the tower, but I've seen videos and it's really cool. We've also gone on a harbor cruise at Newport Beach, plus a cool outdoor mall there. We spent a day in LA, drove past the Chinese Theater and checked out a few stars on the Walk of Fame. We also went to the Griffith Observatory just to walk around the grounds. We didn't go inside. We went to the Travel Town Railroad. You can also go to Griffith Park and there's lots to do there. You can also go to Walt's Barn in LA and see Walt Disney's passion for railroading showcase. It has very limited hours. It's usually only open on the 3rd Sunday of every month from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. They have a Facebook page with the most up-to-date operating information. I've never been there, but I'm definitely hoping I can on my next trip. There's also the option of professional sporting events like the Anaheim Ducks, which is an NHL hockey team, or the Los Angeles Angels Major League Baseball team. You could also go to Los Angeles for more professional sporting events, but I'm just talking about ones that are in Anaheim. There are also outlet malls if shopping is your thing, or if you want to take it easy and stay a little closer to Disneyland on your days off, you can easily spend a day at downtown Disney and at your hotel pool and exploring the 3 Disneyland resort hotels, even if you're not staying there. And if you're worried about how you'll get around doing all of these things, you can take Ubers or Lyfts or taxis or shuttles, or you could also just rent a car for the day. Those are just a few suggestions of how to spend your time away from the parks, so do what works best for you and try to get more than 5 hours of sleep a night. Highly recommended. In my final video of the series, which will be my 17th one, and I can't believe it took this many videos to give you all the information, but here we are because I'm always afraid that I'm not going to give enough info. Anyway, I'll give you some tips specific to going with young kids, so stay tuned for that one. There is nothing more magical than going to Disneyland with your kids. Seeing the wonder through their eyes truly makes you feel like a kid again yourself. I'll hear people say, don't go with kids when they're young, they won't remember. In my humble opinion, that doesn't matter. You will remember. Plus, life happens. Sometimes later never comes. Plus, kids are free under 3, so there's that. But at the same time, even though it's magical, it's also daunting. I'm just going to share my experience with my fairly flexible, easygoing son at various ages of his life. He was always able to sleep in his own playpen and in the stroller, so those were great benefits. I didn't go with him at the newborn baby stage or anything under 2 years old, so I didn't do baby wearing, but I know that's a popular option for people too. In case you haven't figured out by now, I like to plan and prepare for everything. This picture was my stroller setup for Disneyland during nap time. My husband called it the command center. We were there in the spring and it wasn't very hot, so I was able to cover it with a thin muslin blanket, and we had a child-safe fan inside the stroller, plus a portable white noise machine. While naps weren't quite what they were at home, they worked out pretty well, and this was for a toddler who slept in a climate-controlled, blackout-curtained white noise machine setup at home every day. You might be thinking, my 4-year-old hasn't used a stroller for 2 years, they won't need one. In my experience, little kids do need strollers, even if they don't need them in everyday life anymore. Until what age? Well, only you can answer that. But you don't want to end up with a miserable child who wants to be carried around all day because they're exhausted, and then now you're exhausted. Of course, if that does happen and you didn't bring one, you can rent one from Disneyland or an outside company like City Stroller Rentals. If you're bringing your own, what one should you bring? You can find tons of opinions online or on Facebook or wherever for what type of stroller is best, and I'm sure that they're all valid opinions and I don't have much experience with different types. I personally have always liked summer infant umbrella strollers for travel. They fit within my budget, they've been easy to gate check at airports, they're lightweight, and they're easy to open and close. When I look for a stroller for travel, I like ones that recline almost flat and that have an extra large visor that goes down really far, which is good for shade and naps. Obviously, a good storage bin underneath is great too, but I also got a side bag to attach for snacks. I think it was even insulated a bit. Also, keep in mind there are guidelines for stroller sizes. They can't be bigger than 31 inches by 52 inches, and wagons are not allowed unless they are for special medical purposes, in which case I think you can get a special tag for them at the Accessibility Services window outside the park in the Esplanade. You can also use a baby carrier for younger babies if you're used to it. I haven't personally done this, but I know lots of people who have. You have to take them off for many of the rides, so make sure you talk to the cast member to know what you can and can't do for yours and your baby's safety. Okay, this next one is going to be kind of a weird tip, and maybe not everyone can do it, but here goes. My diaper bag was really heavy as it had everything we needed for the whole day, besides snacks which were in the side bag. I liked it hanging from the handles, but I'm sure you know what happens with that. As soon as you take baby out of the stroller, it tips over. So I brought workout ankle weights for the front of the stroller, wrapped just above the wheels. I brought them on carry-on in the plane so that I wasn't literally adding weight to my luggage. It was kind of fun explaining them to security, but I didn't have any problems. I also made a large, bright tag for my stroller with our name on it, right on the handle so that someone wouldn't accidentally take it. Our son was also somewhat newly potty trained on our second family trip, so I set a timer for every 2 hours and I took him to the bathroom whenever that timer went or before we went into any long lineup. It worked well, no accidents, and only one quick get out of the queue moment. I'd also recommend bringing a portable toilet seat for younger kids and post-it notes to cover the flush sensor so that it doesn't go off unexpectedly and startle them. And you don't need to worry if you need to leave the queue. You can even talk to a cast member if they're nearby and tell them that your little one has to go to the bathroom. Sometimes they have backstage bathrooms that you can use that are closer than going out of the whole lineup, like maybe for Indiana Jones. But if you do have to leave the line and go back in, generally people are pretty okay with that and they won't be upset at you. Anyway, there are 2 baby care centers, one at each park, DCA and Disneyland, and they're great locations where you can have a quiet and private area that has a nursing room with chairs, changing room with tables, a toddler-sized toilet, feeding areas with high chairs, kitchen with a sink, bottle warmers, and a microwave. There's also a vending machine that has formula, baby food, juice, diapers, wipes, sunscreen, pacifiers, and over-the-counter medication for purchase with a credit card. At Disneyland, you can find it when you're walking towards the castle on the right past the Plaza Point shop, and at DCA by the Ghirardelli soda fountain in San Francisco, just past Cars Land. Make sure you have some snacks that you know that they'll like, whether you're in a long line or waiting for a show to start, or it's in between meals, or your kid just doesn't like the meal that you bought. Snacks can save the day. I've also made a video on food at Disneyland, complete with suggestions for kids, so check that out by clicking the link above. When we went when our son was younger, my dad was with us, and we would usually rope drop early in the morning, and then my dad would take our son back to our Airbnb at around 7 or 8 and put him to bed, while my husband and I enjoyed the park, just the 2 of us. We did naps on the go at the park. I fully realize that this isn't feasible for a lot of people, and many people just like to go back to their hotel rooms anyway in the afternoon in the heat of the day to rest or take a nap or a pool break. So if that's what you need to do, definitely do it. And if you decide to power through and spend the whole day at the parks, then definitely take some time to see some shows, get into some air conditioning, and relax a bit in the afternoons if you can. Rest is important, whatever form it takes. There are some great areas of both parks, Disneyland and DCA, that are more kid-focused so that they can just let loose and run around while you can hopefully get off your feet and relax for a few minutes, or chase them around, which isn't very relaxing, but I digress. At DCA, Redwood Creek Challenge is a kid haven. There are so many fun areas to explore, or climb, or run around in. DCA also has the Disney Junior Dance Party in Hollywoodland, which is a perfect place for kids to jump and yell and get all their sillies out. At Disneyland, don't miss out on Pirate's Lair on Tom Sawyer Island. It was designed by Walt Disney himself, and it's a perfect place for littles to run around and blow off some steam. The last draft to the island is usually at 5 p.m., so make sure you go well before then. Also at Disneyland is Goofy's How to Play Yard in Toontown, which is a fun play area for kids. You'll also want to consider entertainment for your kids too for while you're in line. When my son was younger, we didn't have a tablet and we didn't really wait in line too much, but we had a heads-up type game that my husband and I played sometimes, and my son just chilled out and looked around. Now that my son is older, he brings a small book to read in line, and we also play heads-up too when we're in line. I mentioned this a few videos ago, but when my son was 2, he loved magnetic drawing pads or the smaller LCD ones, and he drew on that for hours while we drove 21 hours to and from Disneyland each way. So that could be handy for waiting in line too, or a tablet or whatever. Of course, you know your kids best and you know what will work for them. A spare set of clothes for kids in diapers or potty training is pretty important too. Maybe a small kit of emergency supplies in case of a diaper blowout would be handy too. Hand sanitizer is important because they touch everything. If they're little and in a stroller with some toys, maybe something to attach the toys to the stroller so that they don't get dropped accidentally could be good too. When our son was really little, we got tattoos for him with our number on them, just in case he got lost. We also took pictures of him each morning to have a description of his outfit and what he looked like. You can also use air tags or something like that too. As for rides, I made a whole video on rides, so click the link above for all of that information. I'd highly recommend it. It covers topics like making sure your child meets minimum height requirements, tips for kids who might be nervous about rides, what rides are jerky, etc. The most kid-friendly rides all in one place in Disneyland are in Fantasyland, but even those can have sort of scary moments. For example, Stromboli laughing in Pinocchio's Daring Journey. We made it a fun game to copy his big belly laugh with our son when he was 2, and he loved it. That's not the only area with kid rides, of course. Almost every land has attractions that aren't too scary for kids. That's just the land that has the most in one place. If you think your kids might be nervous on rides, I'd start out light and happy like King Arthur's Carousel or Dumbo or something like that, and then gradually increase the level. For example, darker rides or rides that might have some more exciting movements. Rider switch is also an option for going on rides that your child isn't big enough for or might be too scared to do. It allows one adult to go in the standby line and go on the attraction with any other members of the party who want to go, while another adult stays behind with the child who doesn't want to ride. Then they switch and the adult who stayed behind can go on the attraction with one other person in the party without waiting in line. You just have to talk to the cast member at the line to ask for a rider switch pass before anyone gets in line. Also, keep in mind that characters can be intimidating for kids. Some are excited and some are shy. The cast members are amazing, but just don't push your kid to have an interaction if they're terrified. Maybe you can get a picture and a hug instead if your kid just isn't feeling it. I made a whole video on entertainment and characters, so you can click the link above for more information. I also made a video on what to pack and do before your trip, and I'd recommend you watch it for some other kid-specific packing tips. Just click the link above. I'm going to mention Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique here because it's my only kid-specific video. However, it's not just for young kids. It's for kids ages 3 to 12. Your kids can get a makeover into a princess or a knight, and there are different packages available. This requires reservations, which you can make 60 days in advance, and like dining, they can go quickly. But also like dining, you can use the Mouse Watcher website, which is not a Disney website, and you can sign up for alerts if you're struggling to find availability for a time that works for you. The package option prices range from $100 to $230, although you can spend more depending on what accessories you want. If you want to get a package that includes a keepsake portrait session, they may not be available after 4 p.m. An adult needs to accompany the child during the makeover, and it takes about 60 to 90 minutes. You can find all of the details on the Disney website. I'll put a link in the description. Overall, when going with kids, just keep your expectations for the trip reasonable, especially if they're young and have never done anything like this before. It can be quite overwhelming for little ones. You might have to just follow their lead and go with the flow for the first bit of your trip, or maybe even the whole time. Just play it by ear and don't try to force things that will probably end up making everyone miserable. Anyway, those are my best tips based on my experiences for traveling to Disneyland with young kids. If I missed anything, feel free to ask me in the comments below. So, if you've made it with me this far, after 17 videos, thank you for watching all of them. I hope these tips help you have the Disneyland vacation of your dreams. I know it seems like a lot, but the internet is full of comments from people who went to Disneyland without doing their research and they didn't have the best trips ever, and their kids were unhappy and they felt like they didn't get very good value. Disneyland is expensive, and it's an investment in memories with those you love. I just want to help everyone have their best time so that they can look back on their trips with fondness and not being upset because of regret. Of course, if you have any questions about Disneyland trip planning at all, please leave them in the comments and I'll be happy to help you out with anything specific to your trip. Stay tuned to my channel as I have lots of other videos coming out that cover a wide range of Disneyland topics. And if you have any topics that you'd like me to cover in a video, let me know in the comments and maybe I can make that happen. Thank you again so much for watching. And if this is too much to remember, grab a copy of my ebook when it's released this fall. It's packed with everything you'll learn in these videos, plus extra secrets, tips, and some Disney history to make your trip even more magical. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and we'll see you in the next one.